for joining us. WeCare, a leading consortium of prominent brands and companies of India and the world, and Polystones, we are organizing this together to organize a series of programs on plastic waste management and phasing out single-use plastic. So I will request the Honorable President of WeCare, uh, Dr. Atul Sud, to kindly give the welcome remarks for the program.
Namaskar, a good and a warm morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is my solemn pleasure to welcome our chief guest, Shri Kaushal Kishore, Honorable Minister of State for Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India, and our dignitaries and guest of honors, Shri Mukesh Suryan, Mayor, South Delhi Municipal Corporation, Her Excellency Mrs. Daniela Mariana Seznov-Ten, Honorable Ambassador to India, Embassy of Romania, Dr. Eric Solheim, the 6th UN Environment Executive Director and former Under Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Peter Bouquet, Principal Administrator, OECD Environment Directorate. I would also like to now welcome each one of you who are joining this event virtually but are extremely passionate about this issue in a real sense. Friends, WeCare is a growing organization and industry consortium on the issue of plastic waste management, and we now have presence of over 37 major brands in supporting this cause. Over the years, since 2016, when India brought the concept of extended producers responsibility for plastic waste management, our members have been at the forefront to implement the regulations with all their commitment for a better management of plastic waste in the country. WeCare is currently engaged in various activities associated with youth engagement, awareness creation, and policy dialogues with various stakeholders in order to drive a conscious effort towards plastic waste collection, segregation, transportation, recycling, and other disposal measures. Over last 6 years of collective experience of our members, we would like to mention that all stakeholders have been diligently pursuing their responsibilities toward the generated waste, and we stay committed to gear up our efforts in the coming years. Whether it's the right set of policies or actions by society, we all need to join hands and create partnerships to complement each other's efforts. For this purpose, we believe that the first basic step is to initiate a multi stakeholder dialogue which is consistent, purpose oriented, and inclusive. We believe that our policy dialogue series is a step in this direction. Our first step today is a part of such series at national level, and this will be followed by regional dialogues, which will be soon announced. We eagerly look forward to engage with state level leadership to drive discussions around this issue as they are an integral and important stakeholder in this value chain. Friends, according to data shared in the parliament, 34 lakh tons of plastic waste was generated in 2019-20 and close to 31 lakh tons in 2018-19. In the last 5 years, the quantity of plastic waste in the country has more than doubled. As the country produced 15 lakh tons of plastic waste in 1560. Besides the increase in plastic waste, India remains committed to reduce the plastic waste as well. By year 2022, India is going to be watershed a year on action on use of single-use plastics for fighting plastic waste pollution. WeCare as an organization resonates with the policy direction of Government of India to enhance recycling infrastructure in the country in a coordinated and constructed manner. We believe that such a humongous task of managing plastic waste would require all of us to synergize our efforts. The government is assisting the states to develop adequate infrastructure for solid and plastic waste management through flagship Swachh Bharat Mission project. The draft EPR regulations, as notified recently in October 2021, talks about all types of management from recycling to final disposal of life through engagement of industry. Although the glide path is really appreciated, but there still needs to be practical, and inclusive approach adopted to meet these targets. We are in constant touch with the Government of India on this, seeking resolution of some of the implementation related challenges. As India moves towards a circular economy, it also has the potential to contribute to reducing the carbon intensity of Indian economy. Resource efficiency is key to such efforts not only from the perspective of resource utilization, but would also include the concept like upcycling of resource, promoting reuse at the end of consumer, etc. While traditionally India's culture and ethos towards resource utilization has been there for centuries, but now we need to reinforce our legacies and drive responsible behavior of society towards waste management. We are hopeful that our future editions of VK Policy Dialogue series would aim to bring together diverse stakeholders, their views and ideas for fighting plastic pollution, and thereby act as a catalyst for boosting the momentum towards circular economy. Friends, we are delighted to receive such a tremendous response to our call for this series, and we are blessed to have presence of Mr. Kaushal Kishorji and such other uh, high-level dignitaries today in our event. Please stay safe and wishing everyone the very best. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind, sir. Thank you so much. Now, may I request our special guest of honor, Sri Mukesh Suryan, sir, as he has joined and he has a very busy schedule. Mukesh sir is our honorable mayor of South Delhi Municipal Corporation and a very strong individual personality and a celebrity in terms of promoting sustainability, Swachh Bharat, and a lot of cleanliness initiatives that government of India has taken, and especially the government of Delhi. So I will request Mukesh sir to kindly deliver your special remarks. Kindly unmute yourself, sir. Yeah.
Uh, Thank you, Akram, for inviting me to this good such of event. And I'm very glad, grateful to you, to all of you, dignities, Honorable Minister Kaushal Kishoreji, all those things, because you have taken a very good step for these things, because India need all these things kind of plastic waste management. But as an SDMC, we are doing lot of efforts to stop this plastic wastage, all these things. जैसे अर्लियर जैसे मैंने आपको पहले भी अर्लियर आई टोल्ड यू कि मैं रिमोट एरिया में हूँ, तो आपको मेरे साथ में नेटवर्क का इशू हो सकता है. बट फॉर प्लास्टिक वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट इज एसटीएमसी डूइंग लॉट्स ऑफ थिंग्स टू स्टॉप दिस थिंग्स. आर यू हियरिंग मी?
यस सर, हम सुन सकते हैं आपको सर.
सुन रहे हैं आप सब लोग? सो एसडीएमसी डूइंग लॉट्स ऑफ थिंग, जैसे in various market we have done plastic law, thela pao, and we are segregating the plastic, all these things, and we have done so many things in this area for this thing. SDMC, in collaboration with the various RWA, also has started a program why waste management Wednesday to disclose to use of single plastic. Use of single plastic in this regard, various market have been taken up, wherein activities have been started making market plastic free. The following markets by SDMC has been take up of the first phase like Sarita Vihar, Safdarjung Enclave, Green Park, Amar Colony, Vikaspuri, Chhatarpur. This is the first phase for segregation of the market, and we or SLF side also. We are collecting approximately 40 ton daily basis plastics, and we are supplying, and we are we are supplying to the energy plants also, and cement factories, all these things. Other than that, we are surrounding 50 waste generating the establishment of RWA, MTA, hotels and clinics, institutions, religion. So for that, 6,000 stakeholders individually garbage collecting, or or our our concessionaire also doing this thing, because they are also daily getting segregating the plastic minimum approximately 7 to 8 tons, and we are supplying that things to our uh, that we called energy waste to energy plant. We are supplying that. So for various market, we are also taking the initiative by RWA also to do not use the single use plastic. Even we have informed Delhi government also to stop this thing, or we are our people and team SDMC also have been in the market to stop these things. Even CSR organizing जैसे ONGC, all these things schemes हमने launch किया है काफी. That is in RK Puram market, CR market, and Greater Kailash market, Malvinagar markets. These things हम लोगों ने काफी कैंपेन भी चलाए हैं. प्लास्टिक लाओ, पिज्जा पाओ, प्लास्टिक लाओ, थैला पाओ, एंड प्लास्टिक लाओ, बुक ले जाओ. This kind of initiative we have taken by SDMC. So Akram, I think there is a network issue. Hope you are listening me, and because picture is
Yes, sir.
not clear.
We can
So
absolutely hear you, and wonderful initiatives that you have taken, sir. Yeah.
so I'm in a hurry also, because I have to go to attend the market, because I'm in a election campaigning in UP. Or I'm thanks to you, all of your teams, to taking this great initiative for the country, and your team also. And I also thanks to all your team members who have taken this kind of great initiative for the plastic ban, these things. So thank you so much, each and everyone, and Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Jai Hind, sir. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
sharing your views, sir. Wonderful
Thank you.
initiative like plastic lao, pizza leke jao, plastic lao, book leke jao.
Plastic lao, bag le jao, plastic lao, thela le jao. Even we are circulating in the sabji market also, these things. So people are very keen to take the thelas, all these things. And people are, young youth also stopping this. People from their family do not use the plastic also. We have initiated so many things. So when we meet in other way, so I'll tell you all the stories what we are going to do to stop the plastics. Thank you so much, each and everyone. I'm sorry for this hurry, because today I'm in a Western UP, where is a total network issue. So thank you so much, each everyone, and good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank you,
so
sir.
much,
I'm
sir.
leaving. I'm leaving now. So you please
Right.
keep continuing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Honorable
Thank
Mayor.
you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for
Thank you.
joining
Thank
in.
you. Thank you.
On behalf of WeCare, and we really thank you for joining us and sharing your perspective.
Bye bye. Thank
So,
you.
Honorable Mayor was sharing his experience on how or what kind of initiatives.
Can I leave now?
Yes, sir.
Please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Please. Yeah. So,
Thank you, sir.
Sir is actually on a campaign duty now. We're moving forward. May I request Her Excellency, Mrs. Daniela Mariana, the Honorable Ambassador of Embassy of Romania, to kindly share your special interest.
Namaste. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this initiative. I joined it with my whole heart, because I'm an environmentalist. I studied sustainable development, and I think there is much to do in this regard, not only in India but everywhere. I arrived 9 months ago, and I have a problem every day when I see the garbage collected from when I see the garbage collected from my house. There is no separation. I'm living in the central of Delhi. Maybe in the south of Delhi, the situation is better, but in the central of Delhi, in the diplomatic enclave, I can tell you that plastic bottles, glass bottles, tins, everything, and with biodegradable waste, everything is collected together. There is no such a thing. And yes, so I will I've made a presentation which concerns mainly the measures taken in Europe to reduce plastic waste, whatever was the measures also taken in Romania as a EU member country. And I have a small example of a very success business story, what you can do with plastics, how can you reuse it, and how many jobs you can create. In India, this would be a fantastic job for many people. Let's say that you give to the people who are living on the streets some rupees if they collect a certain kilo of plastics per day, and they deposit somewhere some tins and bottles and whatever. Instead of begging, they would be paid for a work, and then these plastics and all this dirt will be taken out of the environment, of our environment. So it's just a very simple example. It doesn't request, it wouldn't require much. So I will I will pass to my presentation. I think we have a big problem. Our current situation is that we are living on a plastic planet, which is poisoning our life and the environment life. Of course, we cannot deny that plastics is important to our economy, and we cannot get rid of it instantly or change it completely to more sustainable more sustainable products. So in Europe, we have about 29 million tons of plastic waste produced each year, and this number, of course, is increasing. Out of this, only 32% is recycled, 40% is burned to generate energy, and the rest, about a quarter, ends up in like 7 million tons, ends up in landfill sites with precious resources which can no longer be used and are hardly biodegradable. The situation in my area of Europe, in Southeastern Europe, it's even less good. The recycling rate for plastic and other synthetic materials is much lower. In Romania, it's just 14%. So, of course, there are plenty of solutions, as I have mentioned at the beginning of my intervention. There is a growing coalition of leading companies, development agencies, international organizations. Can you hear me?
Yes,
I
we
got
can. We can.
Yes, no, because it was a power cut. So
Okay.
there is a growing coalition of leading companies, development agencies, international organizations, and civil society, which is committed to tackle this complex challenge on all fronts. So what we can do, we need to improve waste collection, as the mayor was mentioning before. We need to do sorting, processing to stop plastic waste leakage, and also better address the huge quantity of plastic waste, which is already in the environment.
Excellency, I think, are you sharing any screen, because we can't see your PPT?
Yes, let me see. I don't know how to share the screen.
There is a share point at the center of the screen below. So you just have to click on share screen, and then you're.
Okay, share screen, yes. But do you see now the presentation?
No, Excellency. We can see it.
Okay, I don't want to make you waste time. It doesn't work.
Okay. You can continue. I will share the screen. You can continue.
Yes.
I don't have the PPT you've shared.
Sorry?
I do not have the PPT. Have you mailed me? No. Okay. You continue, Excellency.
Okay. So, of course, what we have a solution is improving recycling literacy, meaning teaching everybody at the grassroots level what they have to do. You start with the children, with adults, with all communities. I mean, in India, there is a lot to be done, but we move slowly forward, as I could see since my arrival here. So we can ensure that litter is collected and disposed properly. Plastic waste is collected for recycling. And the most important thing, the utmost important thing, is to engage communities in cleanup activities. In Europe, we have the European Strategy for Plastics in a Circular Economy, adopted in 2018. And as a result, we hope that all plastic packaging must be recyclable or reusable by 2030 at the latest. This initiative involves companies such as plastic products manufacturers and packaging to develop technologies allowing plastic to be reused after consumer usage through recycling. European companies are leading in this regard, but we have also producers in North America, Middle East, and Asia who are incorporating circularity into their strategies. So we have, there is a scheme of circular economy where companies, more and more companies are developing technologies to reuse plastics after consumer usage through recycling. We have collaborations and alliances to end plastic waste among plastic manufacturers and civil society, environmental regulations, and private or company initiatives. In Romania, as I have mentioned at the beginning, the national waste management policy is in line with the objectives of the European waste prevention policy. We adopted a national plan for waste management in January 2018, which have radically changed the business model in the field of packaging waste recycling in Romania. From 1st of July 2018, Romania has banned the introduction on the national market of thin and very thin plastic transportation bags with handles, granting preference to biodegradable or reusable bags. Other policies adopted are deposit return schemes. The legislation was recently adopted by issued by the Ministry of Environment in December 2020, and is expected to be fully effective from 1st of April 2022, so in 2 months' time. We have also eco tax applicable to any type of plastic bags. Ecological alternatives like biodegradable and compostable or such as starch or cellulose products are exempt from payment. So I will briefly tell you about a local project which started in 2003 in Buzău, which is a county in the middle of Romania. A carbon offset project promoting the recycling of used PET bottles and other plastic waste. The PET flakes and granulate obtained from the recycling process were used, for example, in the packaging industry or for insulation in the construction sector. As a result, resources are saved and the burden on the climate is reduced. They also, this company, GreenTech SA, they are also educating children, have programs to educate children in the schools about the importance of avoiding plastic waste, recycling, separating, and avoiding to use plastic as such. So they created this company, GreenTech, has been working since 2003. They, from a small factory with 12,000 ton capacity recycling per year, they developed 200,000 tons per year in almost in 18 years. So it's quite a success story which offers jobs, more than 1,100 jobs. The biggest employers, this company is the biggest employer in this county, and which is not a very developed region, mainly agricultural region. So this offered not only cleaning the environment, but also giving jobs. So this is what I wanted to share with you. It's a small beginning. We can all do more together. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Excellency, for sharing your perspective and view, and especially giving the best practice examples from the continent and region and in your country. Moving forward, may I request now Dr. Erik Solheim, the former 6th UN Environment Executive Director and former Undersecretary of the United Nations, a very celebrity name in this space of sustainable development, recycling, waste management, and the broader context of UN SDGs. So I would request Erik sir to kindly give us a broader perspective of how India, a nation which is going to take the center stage of development model across the world, what are the best practices we can learn in the solid waste management, in the plastic waste management, and also imbibing the sustainable development goals and global development agenda forward.
Thank you so much, Akram. Good morning, India. Namaste to everyone. I'm so pleased to be with so many people who really want to fight the plastic menace. Before we start going into the solutions, let me remind everyone as to why this is such an enormous international issue now. When plastic was invented, it was seen as a miracle material by everyone. You can see commercials from America in the 1950s where they speak about this new material, which is absolutely plastic fantastic because it solves so many problems for humans. And that's, of course, exactly why we are using so much of it. It's very handy, very useful, and we are overusing it. And it's now a triple crisis: environment crisis, economic crisis, and health crisis. Environment, whales are eating plastic. There was a whale dying in Thailand recently. It has had 70 plastic bags in its stomach, vomiting plastic bags while dying. Seabirds are diving, eating plastic, even feeding their chicks. So they are not just destroying themselves, but they are destroying the chicks by plastic. Cows, camels, many land animals also eating plastic, and it's a huge environment catastrophe. Second, it's an economic catastrophe for societies and nations. In Indonesia, the government has defined the plastic pollution as an environment threat to the nation of Indonesia. Why? Well, how many tourists will want to go to Bali to go for a swim if they're swimming in a soup of plastic? If you want to attract people to such a beautiful, fantastic place as Indonesia, but say in India and Goa and many other places, well, there cannot be a lot of plastic there. People simply won't come. And then you reduce the income, and it's an economic threat. And third, it's a health threat. We are now breathing plastic, drinking plastic, eating plastic, you are eating fish, and even the most pristine water on planet Earth, say in Antarctica or in the Arctic or up in the mountains of Himalaya, places where no humans have ever set their feet. Still, there is enormous plastic. An international investigation showed that there is no water on the planet without small pieces of microplastic or nanoplastic. And at this point, we don't exactly know the impact on this on human health, but no one has suggested it's good for us. So it's a triple crisis: economic, environment, and health. What is the solution? And that's, of course, the good news. There are solutions. More than that, India is in the lead of finding this solution, and India can be a pioneer in the global fight against plastic. In my view, there are three solutions. One is what Prime Minister Modi has now launched in India, and where many states pioneered in the past, which we heard from the Romanian ambassador is happening in Europe. That's banning all those plastic items we simply don't need. Do we need to drink from a plastic cup, or can we simply drink from a normal cup like I'm doing now? And for sure, my father and mother and grandparents, they always were drinking. Exactly. We can all drink from normal cups. We can eat without cutlery. I tried to buy cutlery a couple of years back in Mumbai, just as a plastic cutlery, just to demonstrate. And the guy in the shop said, no, if you want plastic cutlery, please go to another Indian state, because here in Maharashtra, it's prohibited. Now this will be prohibited all over Europe and all over India, and it's good. We can celebrate Diwali or Christmas without balloons. So many other ways of celebrating. Don't need to send up balloons and kill animals by it. So let's stop all those plastic items we can do without. Secondly, is to introduce new technologies. That's happening all over India. There are any amount of startups and NGOs, some of them I know are in the room here because they're putting out about information about their activities on the chat. So everyone who wants to see what they're doing, please go into the chat and connect. People are making any number of materials from potatoes, from sugar canes, from cassava in Africa. You can simply make items with the abilities of plastic, but from materials which degenerate in nature. That, of course, has thousands of years of history in India. In southern India, still, I mean, many parts of India, so many people are eating the meals on banana leaves. If you throw away the banana leaf, what's the problem? It will degenerate very soon in nature. And as you can make packaging from banana leaf, you don't need the plastic, you just throw the banana leaf around. And there are so many other materials. The only problem with this at this stage is scale. There are initiatives in a village or in a community and by some small startup, but it has not been scaled to the real scale of the problem. And let's remind ourselves that only in India, there are 700,000 villages. That's what Prime Minister Modi needs to care for. And there are any number of big cities, so you need scalable solution. But I believe that we should really work on inventing better materials. And thirdly, we need to recycle. There is no way we can solve the problem without recycling. Think of the COVID-19 catastrophe. We needed plastic in many different ways. Many of our masks had plastic components. Of course, in the health sector, you need the plastic to separate people in different ways and to separate the microbes from humans. So there's any number of useful use of plastics, which cannot, at least at this stage, be replaced. Then you need recycling. But recycling need to be at scale. And scale is big in India. We have all seen the photos. Many have seen also physically all the waste mountains around Delhi. I have some good friends in a company called LJ. They have now been given the opportunity to clean up some of the big waste sites in Chennai, in Tamil Nadu. And in these waste sites, there are millions upon millions of tons of waste. Not all of it is plastic, maybe 10% is plastic, but you need them to separate plastic from the organic waste and find a way of recycling. This company LJ, but they are similar in many parts of India, and I'm working on how can we make the separation and how can we generate as much value as possible out of this plastic. Because what we ultimately need is, of course, a circular economy, which means that if the Romanian ambassador or Akram Hok or myself, if you throw away something, it's recycled into a new plastic utility. So these three, prohibiting what we don't need, working on alternative materials, and large-scale recycling where whatever is thrown away is brought in. Romanian ambassador said that many waste pickers can play a key role here. That's of course happening already all over India and basically all over the world. Many people get the living from picking waste. But they're sometimes living under very harsh conditions. There are a lot of health hazards. So you need to look into the working conditions of the waste pickers, but they can help pick and go into this recycling economy. Finally, can this problem be resolved? Absolutely. It's a big yes. Look to how we resolved the issues in the past. When I got into European politics quite some years back, the big environment issue in Europe and the world was the hole in the ozone layer. Was everyone talked about? It's a huge issue. Now no one is talking about the hole in the ozone layer. Why is it? It's solved. The hole in the ozone layer is disappearing by 2050. Every damage the humankind has done to the ozone layer will be repaired, and the ozone layer will come back in the same form and shape as it had before we started harming it. That happened because governments took decisive actions, like Prime Minister Modi and many chief ministers of many states are doing in India. There was activists working to mobilize the opinion, like say Afroz Shah, this great activist in Mumbai, has mobilized hundreds of thousands of people on the beaches and in the rivers of Mumbai to clean them up. But by mobilizing people to clean up, also was setting out the message that politicians and business need to change. So politicians and individuals and business, when they come together, we will be able to resolve this issue. So thank you so much for having me. I'm very optimistic that we'll be able in the next decade to solve the plastic menace. And I believe I will be in the forefront of this because of the dedication of the Prime Minister and so many chief ministers, but at the end, the dedication of so many Indians to push business and push political leaders to solve this big problem. So thank you so much. Jai Hind.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Eric, for your wonderful presentation in terms of covering all important aspects of addressing this issue. I would request Kamal, if he's here. We have Mr. Kamal Sharma, the CEO of WeCare, to also jointly invite our next speaker, Mr. Peter Borke, who is the Principal Administrator of OECD Environment Directorate, one of the best names and credible names in the space of plastic waste management and environment sustainable development. Kamal, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Eric, for sharing your perspective. And this is really, your words of wisdom and passion is what we take energy from. We truly appreciate your, continual engagement on this issue. And from India, WeCare is a national consortium of 37 brands who are committed to the cause. And you would see a lot of actions from our side as well. Thank you, Her Excellency, for your remarks and on Romania. And it was really nice to know that how you are making efforts to make the things happen on ground. And that's where we as India are. And we share that passion with you. Now I turn to my friend, Mr. Peter Borke, who is a Principal Administrator of OECD Environment. He is leading the discussions in the European front, and he has been very instrumental in bringing out guidelines on EPR. So he is a very good, resource person for us to tap on. And I look forward, Peter, to hear your perspective on this. Thank you.
Namaste to you all, excellencies, fellow speakers, and industry leaders on this call. And hello to you, Kamal. It's really great to see you, and I thank you for this opportunity to be together with you and many other people who are engaged in this endeavor to end plastic waste and leakage. So I have been asked to provide an international perspective, which I will do from the work that we've done at the OECD over the past years. And I will now try to share my screen so that you can see my presentation. Okay, seems to work. Just need to put it into full screen mode. There we go. Let's see. Okay, before I start, let me say a few words about the organization that I work for, because I think that the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, which is based in Paris, is probably not so well known in India. Our organization essentially is an intergovernmental think and do tank. Its role is to advise its members, which are 38 countries among the most advanced economies, in matters of public policies. And work on the circular economy and waste at the OECD started essentially in the 1970s and has constantly evolved since then. Plastics has become a focus of our work since a little less than 10 years ago now. And we are currently putting the final touches on a major report, which we call the Global Plastics Outlook. This report assesses recent trends and developments, provides projections of plastics consumption, waste generation, and emissions into the environment at the global level. And it analyzes, the policy mix that can allow to achieve the objective which was set at the G20 Osaka Blue Ocean vision of eliminating additional plastics emissions to the ocean by 2050. This work is still embargoed. It will be launched later in February in this month. So I will only be able to give you, some few insights of it at this stage. I think previous speakers have already made the point how serious plastics pollution has become. So I think I can skip over these slides rather quickly. As you can see from these graphs, global plastics production has increased exponentially since the 1950s. And so has plastic waste generation in parallel. This is, of course, driven by economic and demographic growth. And as our Global Plastics Outlook to be launched soon will show, these trends are also expected to continue into the future if no serious policy action is taken. And of course, as Eric has very forcefully expressed, the leakage of plastics into the environment that results from our use of plastics is a serious threat to the environment and people's health. And let me see if I can, sorry, I was actually not on the right slide. Something is wrong here. Okay, this was actually the slide, sorry for this, that I wanted to show. This slide from a scientific paper from Le Breton actually shows the major sources of plastic pollution into oceans. So what is what are the potential solutions? Some trouble here. All right, so this is not the right slide. And I will really take a public policy perspective here, because this is really what we focus on at the OECD. We see that there are essentially 5 approaches that governments can use to address plastic waste litter. You need to reduce the amount of plastic, as Eric has also said. You need also to improve the design of plastics to make the material more sustainable, more easily recyclable. You need to enhance recycling, collect material for recycling, and then restore the material properties. You also need, of course, to close leakage pathways, which is basic municipal waste management, essentially. And we will also need to look at end-of-pipe solutions and clean up and remediate plastic that's already found its way into the environment. So all of this will need to be done. Sorry again, I'm not well organized. And in the OECD, most attention really has been spent, and I think that's also true globally, in addressing the end of life of plastics. So particularly, we focused on closing leakage pathways, improving our basic waste management capabilities, and enhancing recycling. These approaches constitute the sort of most important and crucial first step in improving plastics management. I think Eric has really provided a really good overview of what those crucial first steps constitute. And in this context, and I think this is one of the key topics of this event, extended producer responsibility has played a very important role. Go to the next slide here. Extended producer responsibility is, of course, a system which puts responsibility for the end-of-life management of waste on producers, those who put products on the market. These policies are widely used in the OECD. Now, really a majority of OECD countries have extended producer responsibility for packaging in place. The most notable exception being the United States, but there too, at the state level, packaging EPRs are now being developed. And in some of our member countries, for instance, Germany, packaging extended producer responsibility systems are in place for more than 30 years now. In 2016, we developed a report that took stock of the experience and developed guidance for governments in making policies for extended producer responsibility. And the insights from this work were that clearly extended producer responsibility has been a very successful policy tool. It has helped to increase municipal solid waste recycling across the OECD from around 25% to around 36% since the early 2000s. Even though those recycling rates for plastics are lower, plastics have been harder to collect and recycle than other materials that one typically finds in municipal solid waste. EPRs also help to reduce the financial burden of municipal solid waste management that rests on public budgets. EPR now contribute around 10% of municipal solid waste costs in many municipalities, in many countries. And last but not least, EPR has also generated significant investment and helped to create markets for waste recycling through the financial resources that it mobilizes and in a sustainable way. So these are, of course, very good results, but they are unfortunately also insufficient to solve, the magnitude of the plastics problem, and in particular to achieve the G20 Osaka Blue Ocean Vision's goal, which is to reduce marine plastic litter to zero by 2050. One of the key criticisms that has been leveled at extended producer responsibility is that it has achieved little in incentivizing resource efficiency higher up in the value chain, and in particular in incentivizing better product design, so that allows products to be more easily recyclable, reusable, and to support increases in recycling rates. Move to the next slide. So we're going full circle here. Therefore, extended producer responsibility systems, despite everything that they have achieved in some of the OECD member countries, need to be further improved and complemented also with other policies in order to deploy their full potential. Extended producer responsibility needs to incorporate incentives to better design products, and that can be achieved by modulating EPR fees according to design features. This is now beginning to be done across some EPR systems in our membership. We will have to see how successful this is, but EPR is not the only policy tool that allows to do this. In addition, there are a range of other policies that can help to reduce the amount of plastics that we use by, as we already heard, replacing single-use plastic items with reusable ones or alternative materials. This is one of the key interventions as well. As I said, policies that support improved product design will also be crucial. The EPR fee modulation is one way, but recycled content mandates, product norms, and hazardous chemicals regulation will also be needed to, among other things, detoxify plastic materials and make them more recyclable and better suited for a circular economy at the same time. And finally, as I already said, also end-of-pipe solutions will be needed, even if it is the least desirable and also least effective type of policy intervention. But it is a fact that already a lot of plastic has actually reached the environment and it needs to be removed. So to conclude, let me try to find what I want to say to conclude. Yes, just so to conclude, let me first of all commend the government of India for the efforts undertaken to better manage plastic waste and reduce litter. It is, of course, crucial to go that route. And I think India, among emerging market economies, is showing a really good example. If well implemented, these measures will represent a major step forward. There's no doubt about that. But in the longer run, as I said, further policies will be needed, especially to move us upstream in the product and material cycle, and to tackle the problem as close as possible at the source. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Peter Bouquet, for sharing your perspective and giving actually a comprehensive direction towards achieving EPR effectively in the nation building. Before I hand over to Kamal to conclude and then take over for the next session, let me just ask a couple of simple questions and then just give the perspective. We have 2-3 minutes to go. Why do we need a robust plastic recycling infrastructure? If we see, if India wishes to achieve Atmanirbhar Bharat and Amrit Kal that our finance minister, honorable finance minister, on the day of budget highlighted, the next 25 years, from 75 to 100 years of India's growth and journey, achieving sustainable plastic waste management ecosystem and infrastructure is of paramount importance. I'll just give the example of China. China initially invested, and so is Europe and other countries. They have invested heavily in building a world-class plastic recycling infrastructure. They made the recyclers the most powerful, most effective. So what they did, they imported huge amount of plastic. They collected huge amount of plastic from across the world, also from within the country, and invested huge amount of money on R&D and technology so that the recycling infrastructure is world-class. And the common challenge of recycling infrastructure is adequate amount of plastic waste supply. We need to produce a humongous amount of plastic waste supply to fuel the plastic recycling infrastructure. Once we do that, this plastic waste recycled material becomes the backbone of next plastic products and services. So the more and more we encourage plastic waste granules to produce next plastic waste materials. And that is what China exactly did. Most of the toys and plastic products that came out of China and flooded across the world were from the recycled materials, were from the recycled plastics. This can be a very blueprint and a good model for us. Let us together build our plastic waste management infrastructure robust. And I'm very happy that Government of India is taking pretty much that direction through EPR. EPR is becoming a very powerful tool of promoting and developing India's plastic waste infrastructure. So thank you so much to all our speakers, all the speakers of the inaugural session, Excellency Daniela and Mr. Peter Borke, Eric sir, and our mayor for joining us in this program. I now request Mr. Kamal Sharma, the CEO of WeCare, the organizer of today's program, to kindly take over the session. And our speakers are also here. Kamal.
Thank you. Thank you, Akram, for your support in organizing this. And we really are thankful to all the panelists and dignitaries on the dais. And from WeCare side, what we believe is that the issue of plastics, when we look at the way the waste management system are there in the country, we need a lot of partnerships. We would need people-to-people partnerships. We need government-to-government partnerships. We need government-to-industry partnerships. And not only for just collection and transportation, but also now the EPR is more, what EPR is going on in India is it would be heavily dependent on the recycling as far as the compliance is concerned. So as Akram mentioned that we need to look at enhancing the recycling infrastructure. I would also like to add, we don't need to do what China did. So we need to look at upcycling. We don't need to look at downcycling, because that's where the whole circularity goes into a toss. And that's where India can be different from what China did. So with speakers like we have on the inaugural, it gives immense encouragement to take these dialogue series forward. We thank each one of you for joining us today. Thank you. We now move on to our next session. Over to Akram to just coordinate with the panelists. Let me know when they are.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kamal. So with this, we conclude our inaugural session. Then now we move forward to our next session. The next session theme that we have picked today is Plastic Waste Neutral India, from recommendations to roadmap. Primarily, we will focus about building a robust EPR infrastructure in India and making EPR effective to achieve circularity or to achieve sustainable plastic waste management. And in this session, we have Shri S. Narayanan sir, who is the IFS and Honorable Member Secretary of Haryana State Pollution Control Board, who will be joining us soon. He is in another meeting. And already we have with us Dr. Vijay Singalji, Chief Environmental Engineer, Rajasthan State Pollution Control Board, one of the most veteran and expert, knowledgeable person in the field of EPR and plastic waste management across the northern India. And with him, we have another veteran from the industry, Mr. Tushar Patnaik, who is the corporate head EHS India and South Asia, SAARC countries from Dabur Limited. So I'd also request Tushar sir to kindly come on camera. With him, we have a global figure and personality, Mr. Michael Rada, who is the founder of Industry 5.0. And exactly what Kamal was saying, that we don't need to go back to the or go down to the recycling, we can go to the upcycling. And I think where Michael Rada has played a tremendous role in terms of improving the upcycling infrastructure of the world. So he is promoting Industry 5.0 back to that old civilization where we promote a different kind of waste prevention infrastructure. Just like in healthcare, we say prevention is better than cure. So Michael Rada is promoting the concept of prevention, then waste management later. So I think we can start the program with Dr. Vijay Singal sir, Kamal, and then when Anand sir joins, I'll take you to the panel. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Akram, and welcome Dr. Vijay Singal, the Chief Environmental Engineer engineer, Rajasthan State Pollution Control Board. You have been a source of inspiration to many young environment professionals. And when you speak, it really sets out the tone for the discussions. And we are happy to, have you here in this panel. Mr. Tushar Ranjan Patnaik, Head EHS of Dabur India. Thank you, Tusharji, for joining in in this panel. And you have been basically leading all the efforts under Dabur's banner, and you are the person who is looking after the EPR and all the plastics issue, whether it's resource recycling or whether it's resource, kind of consumption. So you are a lead, and we look forward to sharing the brand's perspective on this panel. You are also a founding member of WeCare. Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Michael Rada, Industry 5.0. You have been truly a stalwart in putting these thoughts, newer thoughts, to the industry for taking up upcycling, as what Akram mentioned, and we are happy to host you in this panel today. So I would first request Dr. Vijay Singhal for his remarks on what has his thoughts around India's implementation challenges and also the achievements that we have made so far under EPR, and also upcoming single-use plastics. How as state authority, how you ensure that when we say action on single-use, we are looking at very fine surgery of the economy. When I say surgery, we are just bringing out the pain point out of the economy, out of the plastics, and not touching the organs or the systems which are working fine. So it is a very fine surgery that you guys are now empowered to do, and look forward to your views. Over to Dr. Singhal. Thank you. Sir, you can unmute yourself first.
Yeah, so you can hear me? Yeah, so thanks a lot. WeCare, Mr. Kamal, Mr. Akram, dignitaries on the diet. It's my honor to be a part of this August, gathering and having an opportunity to express my views. As you know that Rajasthan has been in the forefront in the waste management. And as far as plastic is concerned, we have around 70 recyclers in Rajasthan which are engaged in recycling of various kind of plastics. We have taken initiative by which we are getting inventory developed through CE's Center for Environmental Education, Mr. Prabhjot Sasodi, who was earlier with UNDP. He's doing us a very detailed inventory of a plastic waste, where he will tell us how much waste is generated in the entire state, what kind of plastic waste it is, all details of the producer, the brand owners, importers, and recyclers will be there. We will also look at where the informal sector is working, what kind of contribution they are making to the plastic waste management. So it's a very integrated and holistic study this C is doing for us. I think probably it's the first of its kind in India, where we are looking at plastic waste management from a 360 angle. So that's one of the initiatives which the State Pollution Control Board is taking. We hope to complete the study in next 5 months. The work has already started. Second part is all the speakers have said that plastic waste recycling is a cornerstone for a circular economy to close the loop, and State Board has been in the forefront in doing this. So we in the state of Rajasthan are setting up a integrated plastic waste management, a park that is kind of resource recovery park. Yeah, you must have seen that plastic waste recyclers and other recyclers of the waste are, set up in different parts of the state or the country. As suppose I am a e-waste recycler, I also generate some kind of plastic waste, some metals. If I am a end of the life vehicle, processing facility, I will also generate used oils and plastic and metals, and then I have to look for recyclers of these waste. So looking to this problem, we thought why not to co-locate all the recyclers at a single place and make a integrated facility where all kind of recyclers are located in a well-defined industrial area. So we are promoting such a facility in Rajasthan on Jaipur-Delhi highway, where we intend to co-locate all the recyclers together, so that there are greater synergies in their waste management. Suppose I have waste which I am not able to recycle, this waste can go to my neighbor who are recycling that kind of waste. So we expect that there will be more synergy, more efficiency in waste recycling, and of course it will also make economic sense. It will increase total quantum of waste being recycled by the state, and will also generate new jobs. And apart from recycling, it will have facilities for testing laboratories, for R&D center, for awareness activity center and training center for the workforce, which will be engaged in the recycling of the all kind of waste. So probably this is also a first of its kind in India. And GIZ and EU are supporting us in this activity. They are extending their technical help. This activity will be, we expect to, we already have 2 meetings with GIZ and EU on this subject. We are very upbeat on this, and hopefully we will be able to start this activity maybe within 5-6 months. Apart from that, if we see about the SUP single-use plastic ban, we have the experience of this. We did ban, plastic carry bags in 2010, but then the entire experience was not very good, to be very frank. Part of the reason was that only a few states had the ban on, single-use plastic, like the plastic carry bags. Other states, other neighboring states did not have any ban. So then the metal used to come from, those states to Rajasthan, and even implementing such a ban in a state-centric manner is very difficult. So now it's a very, very welcome step that we have a, regulation which is in India, and we are kind of banning some specific single-use plastics throughout the country. So I think now effectively states can take action to close all the facilities which are manufacturing these kind of single-use these plastics, and I think enforcement will be more effective. But there is still one issue which we need to address very seriously. What are the alternatives? Suppose I don't have a plastic cups and glasses. What do I do? How do I do my everyday chores? It means you have to look at the alternatives very seriously. And then when you look at the alternatives, you have to also see that these alternatives are environmentally sustainable. I mean, you can't have alternative which is energy guzzling or which use non-renewable sources of raw materials. So you have, and then you should be able to mass produce those items, because having a few items just for the display and R&D, thing is okay. But then to feed a country like India, we have 120 billion people. To feed such a a large country, you need to have alternatives which can be mass produced, which are based on non-renewable sources, which are energy efficient, and they should be economically available, economically viable. I mean, you can't have very costly alternatives. You have to see that the items which we are now banning, we are able to bring items which are at least not at par, but it will not be very highly, priced. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to ban the single-use plastic items. So we need to look at this problem very seriously. Just by banning a single-use items, will just say half of the issue. We'll have to also see that you have good substitute for the items which you are banning. Other issues that when you recycle the products, we have to also see that the products are marketed. Unless you create markets by way of instruments, which may be due to the fiscal instruments or maybe the policy instruments, you will not be able to sell these the products at a reasonable, price. Without this entire chain, which is, at the backyard where you are getting waste from rec pickers or some, other units, if you are not able to pay them reasonably. Uh, so I mean, it is very necessary that you have good market where the product of recycling are sold at a reasonable price. States has to do something for this. I mean, a procurement policies has to be tuned that most of these items are sold at least by at the government supply. So you have to give financial incentives. You have to bring policy initiatives by which you are able to sell these items at a good price, so that you are able to give impetus to the recycling process. So these are a few, words which I just want you to share with you. I hope these discussions will be very, important, very good for the, the management of plastic waste. I wish you all the best. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Singhal. You very well elaborated the actions that have been taken and also the thought process of the state board. And we really appreciate government's intent to, bring out very clear, way forward for phasing out of single-use plastics. So thank you. And I would now turn to Mr. Tushar Patnaik, because after hearing from the regulator's perspective, I would also let's hear it from the brands and their perspective on their experience on EPR implementation, because Dabur is one of the major brands who has carried a very good reputation in terms of implementation of EPR. So Tusharji, over to you.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Mr. Kamal, and thank you for the WeCare and thank you for the Policy Times for organizing such a very, very important conference on the topic of single-use of plastics. So through this, I'll share one of the presentation, which will be very, very on the practical ground data, which have done work towards the leading of the plastic neutral. So that's I'll show you through those presentations. So hope after this presentation, the discussion will be healthy discussions. So today's topic is very, very important. This plastic waste neutral India from a recommendations to the roadmap. If you see recommendation to roadmap. The second, if you see the data, this is the one typical data. If you show this, how much plastic is collected from the environment and how is disposed up to the environment, how much is going to the recycling and how much. So this is a very, very typical data which I've taken from an authenticate source. And if you see this plastic, it will take more than 400 years to decompose. And how much is going to the cement industry and how much is going to the road construction and how much is going to for energy recovery also. So these are the plastics data scenario at present of the India. The second terms is coming into the current status of this plastic management. If you see in India, total the primary collection is door-to-door collection systems through apartments, societies, and malls. Often, many cities and states are doing their very, very robust mechanism for collection of the waste and sending to the collection center to the recycling facility. But still, many of the areas, the facility is not that much of developed. And if you see rural areas, in urban areas, anyhow, the mechanism is there, the municipality is there. But if you go back to the rural areas and villages, there are sarpanch, panchayat, the routes of mechanism to be developed if you want to be a plastic neutral nation. So things are in the shape, but if you see, go back in the last 4 to 5 years, things have been improved a lot. What was not happened in the last 5 years, today people have, that a behavior has been very much changed that during the Swachh Bharat mission and various government is taking the proactive steps for the plastic neutrality. So these are the some figures and data of the entire pan India which I am showing here. So if you there's a practical model of plastic waste management, how basically the plastic waste management is collected, where it is a dry waste and wet waste, and from incinerable solid waste to non-incinerable solid waste. Again, it is divided to organic, inorganic. Some is going to recycling, some is going to cement industry, some is going to, again, this road construction, and some is again not disposed of properly, which is littering on the environment and which is burning issues for the everybody. So this is the typical, everybody knows it, just I'm trying to show in a diagram how it is collected. If you see the stages of this, one is upstream and second is midstream and third is downstream. While it's talking about upstream, how the plastic and where the plastic is exactly made, this is from the oil exploration and productions. While it's talking about the midstream, it is basically manufactured and uses the plastic material where you are manufactured. And while you're talking about downstream, downstream is plastic waste is collection, segregated, aggregated for recycling, reutilization. These are the three process and which are giving. If you see the plastic management journey in India, if you see, go back in the 1999, nobody knows about what is the plastic recycling. The rule is there. But if you see from 2018, this plastic journey really started and geared up to this 2021-22. Now everywhere you can see every government, organized sector, private sector, everybody is talking about plastic waste management. And today we are here and organizing such a beautiful conferences on a plastic waste management. If you go back last 2-3 years, nobody was organizing such conferences on plastic waste management, because we are here and organizing such conferences means that's the importance. And the leadership is taken by Dr. Prime Minister Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan and Clean India 2050 by renewable energy, 2070 by Clean India. So everything, if you see the current notification of 6th October 2021, it has given a clear roadmap for the not only for the plastic recycling, but also how the plastic recycling will improve and how much we can use the rPET, I can use the recycling plastic into, so that how the virgin plastic will reduce. So these are clear guidelines given in the notification of 6th October 2021. If you see, the notification has tells of many things, but I'll clearly tell some of the broad figures. Here is set as the EPR targets, starting from first year up to 35% to consecutive year of 100%, role of a plastic waste processors, role of a brand owners, and looking the entire data into an portal, how it will be segregated. And again, is not only talking about the EPR targets, beyond to that, also how the plastic with the 3R approach, how to reduce, how to reuse, and how the recycled plastics can be used in the products. That means the focus is to reduce the plastic, the littering in the environment will reduce. Once the virgin plastic will reduce, so the plastic littering problem and which is creating the pollution of the environment will reduce. So this is a roadmap for another 30 to 40 years, which has come out in the last year of 6th of October 2021. And coming back to as a company, Plastic Waste is Dabur India Limited. So Dabur India Limited, we are working in the plastic management sector from last 2017. And till date, we have committed and doing this plastic waste management in a very sustainable way in the across the pan India's all the states and UTs. And this year, company has taken, our CEO has taken a target that company will do the plastic neutral. We have almost more than 90% we have done here. So this year we have taken a target of 26,950 metric ton to be a plastic neutral company in India. So these targets we have almost 90% complete. At the end of March, we'll be reach this figure of plastic neutral. So this is our top CEO's commitment that we are not only doing the collection of plastic, but also sending to the recycling. Also, we're looking after the social, how we are engaging different stakeholders. And we are also committed for a sustainable environment. It is when you are collecting and recycling the plastics, it will giving importance to that how much carbon reduction from the atmosphere and how much and how we are involving different stakeholders, starting from the government agencies, starting from the ULB, WMA agency, rag pickers. Many people were directly or indirectly engaged with the company. So in a sustainable way, how plastic is collected and sending back, and everybody will get benefited. That's our main aim of our CEO, Mr. Mohit Malhotra. So if you see the collection mechanism of Dabur, how we have reached a plastic neutral company, starting from the year of 2018 till date, we are 21 and 22. We are working with most reputed waste management agencies of India, working us starting with the 3 management agencies. Today, we are working with almost all the big waste management agencies of India. 12 management agencies are working with us, and they are doing in a very sustainable way. We are, as a company, not only focusing on the collection of the material to the plastic neutral, but how transparently we are collecting the material and sending to collection centers and the recycling centers through the vehicles. That for that we have hired a world-class audit agencies called BDO, who is doing checking of all the documents which is given by the waste management agency, how efficiently they are collecting from different areas the waste collection and sending to the recycling centers. This is also shown through a checklist which I am showing you on the screen. So if you go back to the end station, next is the till date we have completed almost more than 45,000 to 50,000 of metric ton which has been recycled, all sent to co-processing or the waste to energy. So these are the typical graph from the last 3 to 4 years, and this year we are target of a plastic neutral of 26,950 metric ton. And these social benefits and environment benefits I have already told you. Being a company, we are mostly responsible for social, environmental, and compliance of the environment for a sustainable environment. If you see this company and the giving the targets of the from 2023 and 24, you have to use certain percentage of recycled plastics in your material. For that, Dabur also already worked for reduction of plastics and various material like Vatika shampoo and Hajmola pouch. And a lot of things are on the pipeline to do on the rPET category for recycling and use the recycled plastics in the material which has been target framed from 2023 and 24. So all across we are working on various fronts also. So there are some challenges is there that we have to address, that need more clarity and documentation process for collection and disposal mechanism. And taking, if you see the current, the registered brands in the CPCB portal is 314. If you see in India is a vast country, there are many more industry. So if you have to minimize the littering, so you have to bring the industry in one umbrella and do the registration, so that more and more plastic collection will do and go for the recycling. That will achieve our target of the plastic neutrality. There are some things, percentage has been defined, how we will do, how the role of a CPCB or the Ministry of Environment and Forest and PCB, role of a ULB. So a lot of things to waiting for a fine form of a SOPs to be come out, so that people will be easier to know how to go about that. Things is there, but it has to be reshaped again in the form of a current SOP. And if you see the roadmap, how the roadmap for the plastic neutral is the key important point are implementation of a circular economy in plastic management. But or our previous speaker also told about the same thing. Companies, and when you are reducing the virgin plastic, it will come into the economy and circular economy in the plastic waste management. So more and more we have to reduce this plastics, and so that this rPET and the other plastics will come into the environment, so that the littering problem will be minimized and we will achieve our target of plastic neutral. EPR portal for the registration of plastic waste generator. That is very, very important, so that all data can be visible on the portal. 100% EPR scheme with some incentive proposal to all the brand owners. Collection mechanism of plastic waste at a micro level, which I have already told you, it has very good form in the very urban areas, but it is still to be done, and a robust mechanism to be made on the you can see in the village area where the Gram Panchayat level is there. Reduction of virgin plastics, thrust and monomaterial structure. Why you are talking about monomaterial structure? Because this will require a source segregation is required. Unless you do the source segregation, you cannot find the good quality of monomaterial structure. If you have get the monomaterial structure, then your recycle will be very easy for the recyclers. Otherwise, the recycling will not proper, with the mixed up garbage will lead to unnecessary creating problems. Reusable systems in consumption, reduction of unwanted plastic in the packaging material, promote alternative plastics like single-use plastics. We have to come out. When you are banning of the single-use plastic, we should come out with the alternatives which is available in the market, so that it will not hamper the economy, it will not hurt the other people. Side by side, for a sustainable environment, we have to be alternative the use of plastics. So with this, the approach of how the waste is collection and segregation, recycling, and going back to a circular economy, I have shown in my presentation. This is wholesome. The entire data to achieve this plastic neutrality. As a company, we are committed, and for the not only the company, I am also we are committed for the nation, which as nation has taken a strong leadership for this. The plastic waste segregation, single-use plastic, and circular economy. We are always ready to help the nation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tusharji. And you very well elaborated the initiatives undertaken by Dabur. And we are truly encouraged to have such a leader in our WeCare membership who is not only driving actions on ground, but is also planning for future. I mean, you have also plans to look at your existing packaging to make it more recyclable. Although there are other members as well in WeCare who are a part of this, way forward. But yes, thanks to you for sharing your perspective. Now, before inviting Michael, I have couple of points to share. This is the discussions that we have so far. So, what we need to clearly understand is that there are two terms which are being used by regulators and all of us. One is that EPR, and the other is the SUP ban. EPR, we have to understand, is for those category of materials where we don't have a solution, but we want industry's responsibility to take back and getting it recycled. So it is basically to allow business continuity. On the other hand, SUP ban is to discontinue, to disrupt the industry which is engaged in its production. So we have to be very clear in our approach that how we are handling EPR and how we are handling the SUP. So yesterday we also got a document from Central Pollution Control Board to all the SPCBs that what are the actions that collectively needs to be undertaken, because now there is a national ban coming up on 1st July on SUP. So we have to ensure, that's what I was mentioning this to Dr. Singhal. If he's there, he can just switch on his video and unmute himself, that we need to now look at the ways how we can target certain category of replaceable or kind of unwanted use of plastics for our ban on SUP, and do not disrupt the EPR part, because that is very essential. A lot of investment has gone into for the last 5-6 years, and we have to build on that rather than having any disruption there. So these points now I would, Dr. Singhal, are you there? There is one question that has come up from the audience. So I would first, like to, pose that question. Akram, is Dr. Singhal on the call? Yeah, so he is there. Hello, Dr. Singhal. I think he might gone in some.
And no, Dr. Singhal has got a actually meeting there in office.
Okay.
He's there.
Okay.
He's there.
Okay.
I
Okay.
told
Okay.
him to.
Maybe when he would come back and we can ask this question. So I would now switch to Michael Rada. Michael, you have heard what from Indians' perspective. You have been with us since morning. So what are the global things the regulators have said? Now we have also heard the state regulator, the initiatives taken by Indian industry. Now, I would request you to share your perspective and also have a flavor of what do you think that the actions that are going on. We have Dr. Singhal. Michael, can I just take that question to Dr. Singhal and then come back to you? Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, Dr. Singhal. We have one question coming out from the audience.
Yeah.
And so that question is basically about as you know, lots of SPCBs have separate EPR rules and requirements for compliances. Do you think SPCB should align with CPCB rules and EPR controlled by CPCB? I mean, somebody has asked this question. Maybe this question I find somewhere the person is lacking in some information. But yes, over to you, sir. You can provide a better perspective.
Actually, earlier there was no EPR notification, so the states were going by their own, ways. They were having their own EPR regulations. But since now you have a uniform notification for EPR, which is though under draft stage, it will be, I mean, hopefully, will be a final notification issued. So there is no room for states to now have different, EPR regulations. Once we have a national EPR notification, EPR guidelines and policy, all the states will need to follow the uniform EPR guidelines issued by the Government of India. So hopefully, once this final notification issued, this issue will be sorted out.
Okay. And sir, also, you have been at the forefront of, EPR implementation, and any insights you would like to share, that where does, as Rajasthan State Pollution Control Board, where do you feel whether that notification is okay with state boards? I mean, also there would be some conflict.
I would say,
but if you can share your views, how that glide path that has been shared in that, be able to collectively meet that. Yeah.
I would say this is the finest notification I ever seen. It is very comprehensive. It covers all the issues. In case you are not able, you are not complying, there is a regulation by which the amount compensation can be imposed on you. You could be prosecuted, and then there is a issue of exchange of EPR credits. I mean, it's very forward-looking a kind of a notification. I mean, regulation. So, but then only thing, there are 2-3 issues which need to be addressed. They have not touched the informal sector anywhere, which I mean they should have included, because unless we have the informal sector addressed properly in the EPR, no PR policy can be successful. They were also not seen that a compostable plastic, films and all. They have addressed a composite plastic carry bags, but not other items which are made from compostable plastics. And then they also specify how that this compostable plastic bags will be ultimately disposed. Because unless you have industrial composting facilities, the compostable bags will not be, disposed finally. So overall, this policy is very good, except a few things which need to be addressed. So I mean, hopefully, once they come with the final notification, it will address all these issues.
Okay. Sure. Thank you, Dr. Singhal. Now, you very well. Thank you, sir. I would now request Michael Data for his address. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and I just would like to correct one of your statements. I am not with India since yesterday, but generally, I have launched Industry 5.0 in India on August 21st, 2020 already, with a keynote delivered on CE conference with more than 1 million follows after this keynote. So I hope the insight of Industry 5.0 on the topic of single-use plastic will be insightful for you as well. And let me share my presentation. If you do not see the slides moving, please tell me. So what is the insight? What is the perspective of single-use plastic in Industry 5.0 perspective? Let me deliver it to you. My name is Mike Rada. I am human, and I'm the founder of Industry 5.0. And maybe some of you don't know what it is, so let me introduce it to you. Industry 5.0 is the first industrial evolution ever led by man, by human. It is based on the principles of systematic waste prevention, industrial upcycling, and it recognizes 4 types of waste: physical, social, urban and process waste. And it's not new. It was introduced officially on December 1st, 2015. In 2017, definition has been posted. On October 14th, 2020, the first in the world Industry 5.0 ambassador was assigned, and he was assigned in India. On January 7th, 2021, Industry 5.0 was officially integrated in a European Commission, European Sustainable Development Framework. And on October 19, it was discussed on United Nations board. And on January 1st this year, we have started the project called 17. We are able to do so because already now at this moment, there are 94 Industry 5.0 ambassadors assigned all over the globe. And if you know what is Industry 5.0, we have to touch one important thing which was not discussed before during our conference. What is single use? What is disposable? If you look at Wikipedia, you will learn that a disposable is a product designed for a single use after which it is recycled or is disposed as a solid waste. Wikipedia says as well that it is an adjective meaning something not reusable, but it's disposable of after use, or that is mostly made from paper, plastic, cotton, and polystyrene foam. But at the same time, Wikipedia says that the product made from composite materials, such as lamination, are difficult to recycle and will be probably landfill. And it says that since 2004, European Union passed a law which stopped allowing disposals on landfills. I am living in the heart of Europe in Czech Republic. Our government still allows disposing on landfills, so as many governments all around Europe. The law or the regulation was agreed in 2004. So this is how it works. I would like to add one sentence to Wikipedia. Single-use products are one of the most frequent wasted products. What is the core of the problem? Is not the plastic. I'm sorry to tell that. Plastic is another form of crude oil, like water and ice. You can turn it back to the crude oil. There are technologies to do so. The true issue is a single use, no matter which material you will speak about or which product you will speak about, because single use is a single profit stream, but multiple waste streams. Permanent production means permanent resource consumption. Permanent production means permanent traffic stream, usually one way. At the same time, it increased the storage space for the produced product. It's a permanent waste stream production. And single use make the feeling that waste and wasting is normal. And that's the most dangerous part. Because of that, I realized in 2010 that nobody in the world is trying to prevent waste happen. And I started in 2013 to deliver waste prevention. And last year on September 1st, it took me 8 years to write waste prevention framework, legislation which should be implemented all over the globe in every company, every family, on every national government, because nothing that can be used or utilized again must become waste. Everything must be considered primary as a pre-waste existing resource and remain in the system. The secondary use or utilization is not limited to the primary function of a product or material and can be executed by everyone respecting the regulations and safety conditions, and collecting, sorting, bulking, transportation, and trade should not be anymore considered secondary utilization. So as if not utilized on a primary location, it must be offered to others before being wasted. And dear ladies and gentlemen, there is no waste if we do not waste. And waste is the result of process called wasting, and not a single legislation in the world define wasting, so I did it. Because wasting is a process in which product or material of any kind, and volume become waste. But in fact, wasting is a system failure and must be prevented first without any limitation or legal restrictions, because wasting is not a feature of a product or material, but it is a result of human behavior. And single use is one of the most common ways of wasting. We have this legislation translated to 26 languages. We have delivered it to governments in 92 countries. And we expect even the United Nations to make the 31st article of Human Rights Declaration should be the right not to waste. We have made one failure in the last decades. We have built our future on the top of a pyramid. But have you ever tried to stay on the top of a pyramid? It's a very unstable place. I realized a decade ago, and I decided to build another groundstone for our wasteless future. The groundstone on which the future can be built, can be established, and even if the ground will shake, it will stand up. We can use it again. And how does it work? It's hard. Because firstly, you have to recognize that something must not become waste. And trust me, if you raise this point, you will see it very hard to recognize that it is not waste. But if you do a second, much more harder step wait for you, you reconsider what to do with that product which you just saved from being wasted. But the third part is the reward. You realize that you maybe fail for the first, second, third time, but when you succeed, you start to change the world. We can go from trouble to treasure. And let me give you one example, the existing one. Have you ever heard the name of a Lysatech company? Probably not. But it is a company which does their business and production in Czech Republic, in my country. The website is lysatech.cz. And why I am speaking about it? Because the company turned this, which means plastic, single-use plastic, and Tetra Pak packaging into a useful construction material which can be used on buildings, on construction, on the roofs. It's certified. And what is the most important part? It exists, the technology. It can be bought right now, right here, straight away, it can be other place. And this is important because we do not have time to spend on development. We can use the existing production. And if you ask whether there is a value of waste prevention, I will tell you and surprise you, yes. The value is 475 trillion US dollars. This is 8x global GDP. This is the value which can be saved every single year on a global scale without primary needed investment in a capital investment. Dear ladies and gentlemen, Industry 5.0 is the first industrial evolution ever led by man, by human. It is based on the principles of systematic waste prevention, and it changed the mindset of people and businesses from wasteful to wasteless. It's not needed capital investment frequently, but it's based on the principles and use so-called on-the-ground mind, something what we have, what is existing. And it's based on transparency, profit sharing, and efficiency. And please do understand, Industry 5.0 is not a sales tool or a buzzword to sell products, technologies, artificial intelligence. No. We are living in the age of digitalization of our work. Our children live in the times of digitalization of our education. And for a long time, our leisure time was digitalized already. So what is needed to be digitalized to be perfect is just the human. But if we do this step, our home will look like this because data don't need any light. But I realized a decade ago, and I have decided to build another world, wasteless world, and my home look like this. and it is everyone's decision if he or she would like to live on a landfill or on a planet which is called blue marble. And we have started 17 projects in which we will try in 17 months' time to recover global economy, society, and environment by implementing the waste prevention methodology and legislation. I have prevented myself over 1 million metric tons in the time. But now we have people in 92 countries covering 85% of global population. Dear ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mike Rada, and I'm a human. And this is the network which we already built within 1 year time. Right now, it's your time to decide whether you still prefer to manage the waste and create landfill, or whether you will go for systematic waste prevention and live on a planet which is called blue marble and does not look like our orbit. I have only limited time to deliver my speech, so let me end here. And I hope I have given you another insight of the topic of a single use. Don't take plastic as the evil. It is the single use, it is the human behavior, and it is us who have to change first to ask the others to follow. Thanks a lot, and I will leave the space for others. And if any questions, feel free to ask, and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn is the best way. And I hope we will work together with all the speakers, all the organizations, and everyone who does not want, who would like to live on a wasteless world. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. It's been a very informative as well as passionate presentation from your side, and you really made the mark the need of driving human behavior towards change. And segregation at source, I think we are over 80% of this problem, and we just need to then channelize it to recycling. But if we end up having a common bin, I mean, very simple tool for all of us to address this issue. But if we are having a common bin, we are spoiling our plastic waste. Down the line, there is no economy of channelizing it back. Even the waste would be contaminated that we won't be able to channelize for recycling into the packaging the way we now want recycled content to be introduced into the packaging. But if my waste is spoiled, nobody can do it down the line. So that's where I think this is a very important area that we as a society needs to look at. And thank you for sharing that perspective. I would also now like to uh, invite Mr. S. Narayanan, Member Secretary, Haryana State Pollution Control Board. Mr. Narayanan, thank you so much for joining in this today's session. And we are really excited to have you on in this dais, because you are the leader from the Pollution Control Board in a very industrialized, one of the industrialized states of India, that is Haryana. And now, with the kind of impetus that we have in 2022 to, number one, to look at new draft of the EPR legislation, which is now under discussion, and also coming up the single-use plastic ban. Yesterday, the PCB issued a notice to, or shared a circular to all the state board how to action the SUP. We had Mr. Dr. Vijay Singhal from Rajasthan State Pollution Control Board in this panel. He is on mute right now. So I was also asking the same question that, how as a person who is vested with all the authority to phase out single-use plastic, how we are making a balance that we are not actually disrupt the former industry or the plastics which are due for EPR, because there are two different policy that we are talking. One is for business continuity, which is called EPR, and other is for disruption in the economy, like stopping the production of certain SUP items. So there must be a very consistent understanding of the definitions of these, that what constitute in these definitions, so that there is no risk to industry per se, and also we have a very clear and consistent approach to phase out, and we deliver something good for the country and for our environment. Over to you, sir. Now your remarks.
Thank you. And I'm really excited to be a part of this particular program. I first of all actually come to me and given me to rather take part in this very noble and very thoughtful process. I'm really thankful to you, and rather taking lead into this particular needy hour. This is very much required at and it is the actually we have to rather take up this one. And my sincere thanks to you, to the WeCare team for the entire thing. And I also see that actually you have taken up this particular project in 5 major cities in the first phase, and you are going to expand it further. So I extend my sincere thanks also, and my cooperation also for this noble cause. I can say that this is one of the very important and required activity at this point of time. Anyway, that is one thing. And I was very fortunate to have the earlier program. I was rather actually having a very full length. I was listening to the entire program of Mr. Michael. And that was very good. And I was very impressed by the way he has presented it. And my sincere congratulations to him also. And as we all know that the new plastic waste management rules, when it was introduced in 2016, it was almost an eye-opener in many states actually. Though Haryana had already implemented way back in 2013, all the banning of plastics and all the things, we have done it. But in the national level, 2016, it was rather going on, as you all may be rather rightly knowing, it has been going on right from 1997, 1998, 2000, 2004, all the way it was actually evolving. But there was no bigger significant impact. Even in Haryana, we introduced it in 2013, a total ban on all the single-use plastics, all the major disposable plastic products, all the things we have done it. But at the same time, we have to admit, honestly, that at the ground level, many of them, they were not even aware of it, actually. That is one part. Secondly, implementation part comes much later. They were not even aware. Many of them were not aware. And even if they were aware, it is an easy product, actually. So everybody was actually trying to use it as a simple alternative and an easy, affordable solution for many of the things. Rightly, we have to acknowledge it. As Mr. Michael was very pointedly telling, actually, I have to rather agree with him on many, because I have done one paper on this plastic waste management way back in 2002-03 in the Europe country. And I was studying the way how they were actually managing the things and how we are managing the things. In that time, I was having an initial thing. It was very beginning of my career, and I was having a very initial thing that, like many of the common people say, that the plastic is rather an evil to the society, and it is more hazardous. That the one study rather changed my entire perspective. I can still vouch that the plastic is a very good savior of environment. I can say that. See, if you use it responsibly, and if you are actually making it a very responsible way of rather its waste management, it saves you energy. It is actually giving you at a very cheaper cost. Cost affordability is there. And in many other aspects, there is a better alternative actually. So you cannot, the way where some people rather actually shout that you ban the entire plastic. I don't agree with that. We have to use it wisely, and we have to rather actually reuse it, recycle it. And that is the best way of managing the plastics rather than totally banning it. And that is not a solution at all. Banning will rather actually end up in more and more energy resources, actually, a depletion of many resources. In some of you must be knowing it. Sometime back, maybe around 15 years back or so, railways brought a thing that we will all use the mud cups for this one, and we will totally ban other things. What happened? Finally, for making that mud cups, you have to rather take the top soil layer, which is actually available in many of the fertile soil. They have taken it, and now it was actually distributed to the railways. And railways, once they were using it, where they disposed it of? They disposed of in the jungle or in the way, on their way actually. So the topsoil was rather depleted to a great extent. So we have to think about the alternative. What we are actually, if we are actually changing the alternative from here to wood, then what will be the opportunity cost of that? That we have to think over. So my point is that we have to also educate the people that we have to use it wisely. We should not blindly go that this is a green products are all rather actually always good for environment. So that is one minor point I want to rather in this actually Mr. Michael was talking. So I am very glad that he has actually given this perspective very properly. So I am very happy to rather endorse the same thing here again. But now, having said that, India is slowly becoming, not even slowly, it is even rather in a very faster way, it is becoming irresponsible user of the plastics. It was not so around 20 years back. We were actually reusing most of the resources, plastic resources. We were recycling most of them. Even the plastic bags at homes, we used to keep it for almost 1 week, 10 days, 15 days, something like that. Now we actually throw it out. We are adopting the practices of Western world by littering more, and because we are actually generating more. So in that way, the first purpose of reducing the use is rather actually recycling, reusing. All these three are actually getting reduced in the modern world Indian culture. So that has to be rather actually shown more and more focus on that particular point. That is one issue. Just I want to rather actually tell you, we are neglecting the 3 R's. Mainly the other 3 R's I am leaving it to you, because that is again a thought process. Here the process is that reducing, recycling and reusing process. This is being rather actually we are adopting the Western culture more and more now. We are habitual of becoming habitual of rather littering. So that was not earlier there. I even still remember we used to keep the one water bottle for almost a month or so, rather even more than that also. Now we are not very keen about that. We want to rather litter it. We don't even want to reuse it, recycle it actually. So that is one thing. The 2021 rules, as you also rather pointed out, CPCB has issued just yesterday the notice also for implementation of that draft notification, which has been rather implemented now from July 2022. So we have also received it. We have to internally sensitize this. I'm frankly telling you, many of the implementing agencies are not aware of this particular draft rule. So though we have been rather holding single-use plastic right from 2019, we started this ban on the single-use plastic in a mission mode also. Prime Minister himself as a Swachh Bharat mission, he rather actually brought out many of the provisions and procedures for rather slowly doing it. Now we have come to a final phase of it, and we have to now ensure that there is a zero inventory on this one. And from July 22, we have to rather actually, but the main role of the board is board and environment department. Incidentally, I am the secretary of environment in government of Haryana. So I have the role in that particular point also. And now I am also holding the charge of the ULB DG, Director General also, because the present DG has now gone on election duty. So I am holding that charge also. So now I have my responsibility in they're actually spread over in all those areas. I see that publicizing it to the maximum level, that only can rather create creation of awareness. You see, creation of incentive and other things are encouraging packages and giving some green incentive, packing up some schemes, all part of it. I don't disagree with that. But the thing is that creation of more and more awareness, particularly among the kids, particularly among the youths, maybe the college kids or the school kids, that rather actually pays a very good dividend. It is my practical experience. And many of the time, even my own kids actually, when they go out, they are very habitual of rather taking a bag rather than expecting expecting the vendor to give a bag. Actually, when the vendors are offering their bags, they refuse it. They say that no, we don't want it. We rather want to have it in our own bags. That sort of a awareness creation is more important, and I think actually we will be succeeding it because Himachal is having a very good policy. Himachal, they don't rather use plastic bags in any of the areas, and there has been banned. In Haryana, of course, it is banned. Chandigarh is able to rather actually implement it very well. In Haryana and Punjab, we have a problem of implementation. We will be rather actually enforcing it with all our efforts. Probably we will be rather, now we have started in the last 1 year, we have been started enforcing these things very strongly. And we have rather actually been driving, conducting many special drives also with the help of the ULB department, district administration, pollution control board in the district levels. And we are actually getting it reviewed at the level of chief secretary himself. Earlier, there was actually a team headed by the NGT appointed team. Of course, this is there in all the states also. Solid waste management rules, as well as the plastic, in which the solid plastic waste management rules implementation also becomes a part. This is being monitored at the level of Honorable NGT. Now they have called the chief secretaries. The main focus is on solid waste management, but again, plastic waste management is a part of that one. So that is also there. As far as Haryana is concerned, we have enrolled 12 manufacturers, 51 recyclers, 63 producers or brand owners, importers, and there is only one unit which has been registered for compostable plastic unit. Actually, there are 28 multi-layered plastic units, which are manufacturing units, which have been rather registered in Haryana. We are more particular about rather actually registering the recycling units so that the informal sector becomes more and more formal and more operational in the state and becomes visible for many of them to rather actually do this. So that is one issue we are actually looking at. And besides that, actually, we see, as I told you, we have actually banned the single-use plastics and other commodities related things. And we have been rather actually distributing the jute bags or cloth bags in all the environmental related functions or celebrations, so that becomes actually a permanent asset in the home, and we become more aware of the avoidance of the plastic bag use. Particularly plastic bags are anyway, they are going to be rather more and more nuisance in the future, not only in terms of its longer time for degradation, but also it rather creates in the problem in the choking of the nalas and other places. It gives a very unaesthetic view also. So that way we are actually working on that, particularly in the water bodies. It is actually creating a lot of pollution. And in the wildlife sanctuary areas and even in the national park areas, forest areas, this becomes a hazard to the wildlife also. So now we have been making a lot of awareness programs, Swachhita Hi Seva, Swachh Pakwada, all the things we are doing it. And we are actually sensitizing the people to Gurudwara and also to religious institutions also, because there the people rather listen more. And we also use it in the plastic road construction, plastic in the road construction. At least one model road, we want to rather actually make it as some sort of this is not going to be a very viable alternative, but we can use it as some sort of an awareness creation part. And of course, enforcement is being done in each and every district. As I told you rightly, we have been rather doing it with the district teams, urban local body teams, and along with our pollution control board officers also. So we are taking action against the banned single-use plastic producers in the informal sectors also. So special task force has been constituted at the level of additional chief secretary, government of Haryana. And we are also rather having the district level team also. The special task force is reviewing whatever they are doing it at their levels. So these are all some of the main things we have actually done it in the state of Haryana, and which can be rather replicated in other states. We have formulated a policy for plastic waste management in Haryana, and we are actually, as a suggestion for the very effective and successful implementation of these rules in the state level, I think that actually now we have to start bag lending system. Bag lending system has been in operation in Western countries long back. Actually, in UK in 2002, 3 and all, I could see these things. You can rather in even in some supermarkets, they rather give you this one for €5, £5 or whatever it is. That is actually recyclable. You once you rather go there next time when you come back and return it, they will take it back and return you the money. That is one thing actually we have to rather, because anyway, otherwise also the fellow who has come out without a bag, he has to carry the things back. So he has to rather actually go for this sort of plastic bag lending system that we can rather think over that. And there is one more thing actually, which is even now practiced in many of the Western countries. In India, I have not seen anywhere actually. That is the reverse vending machines. That reverse vending machines, if you are having a very big bottles, like whether it is water bottles or it is that rather helps us in the PRO, producer's responsibility. Usme that how it is actually you can rather actually keep this machine supermarkets and some common places where they will give you the receipt for how whatever number of recyclable plastic or even glass bottles you are giving it back. So they will give you a receipt for that. That can be rather used in terms of cash, which I have not seen it in India very in many places. At least it should be there. This is a very simple system which can be rather introduced, and that will ensure the producer's responsibility also. He is taking it back for a cost. So that is only a machine. So this will rather machine will rather see the dimensions and it will rather actually take it up. It will produce a slip, and that slip can be used as a money or for reimbursement. That is actually done in many of the European countries. I have seen it in almost Germany, Netherlands, and Brussels. Everywhere it is there. In all the European countries, it is all there. So that is one thing we can immediately introduce. So that is a cash incentive rather actually given to the individual households or individual consumer. So another thing actually in Haryana we started plastic bottle collection center. Some of the times, sometimes actually the people, like in some common places, hospitals or in the big commercial complexes, people rather drink some water or some cool drinks, and then they don't know immediately where to rather dispose it off. That has to be rather separately collected. So I have actually put up many of such collection things. Actually, it is very visible so that people know that yes, there is a collection point here. I have kept it one or two in the Haryana Bhavan in New Delhi, and I have replicated the model which was adopted in Tamil Nadu. So I have actually rather done it in many areas. So which is actually helpful. People see that one, and in that particular collection bin itself, I rather actually paste the name of the recycler who is supposed to rather collect it. Once the bin is actually full, then anyone can call that number, that recycler's number, that this particular bin is rather full. You can rather take it up. So that is one thing rather actually I have introduced in Haryana, though not very successfully, but I will try to rather vigorously, more intensively use this one. And also final thing is that we can rather think about imposing a green cess, which is actually consciously you have to pay for that. This has also been done in many of the European countries, and this we can rather introduce here also. And finally, I can say that education is main thing, because that rather pay you rich dividends in the very recent future. You will rather actually start realizing it. So with these words, I once again thank the WeCare organization for their very valuable and timely initiative for this single ban on this single plastic waste in India and the management of plastic waste in India. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Narayanan. We really are encouraged to know all the initiatives being undertaken by Haryana under your leadership, and we look forward to engage with you to take it at a scale. So we would now look at some of the questions that have been put up. I mean, we have a very small
Yeah.
time window for taking up the question. There is one important issue that keeps coming up, and some of the questions also there, that we look at recycling from the perspective of mechanical recycling, which takes the material to more or less towards a downcycling. I mean, doing that stuff. But when it comes to the new mandates under EPR, we need to look at the upcycling. So, we also need, I mean, I'm leaving these points for your consideration, maybe for the future, is that how we can look at upcycling in our states, so that the waste that is being generated is channeled back to the supply chain and to the formal industry for integrating back into the packaging. So this is very important for all of us to look at, where there is very little infrastructure or no science on ground. But yes, this is something that we as a nation needs to look at it. With this, I would like to switch to Dr. Vijay Singhal again. Thank you, sir, for joining back again.
Thank you very
And
much. And
we
I
were
have actually gone through some
yeah,
of the comments also, and some people have
yeah,
also rather expressed very rightly. I am not actually telling it is something rather actually not factual and all. It is very factual that in Haryana also at ground level this has not been done. I myself accepted that part actually, because at ground level this has not been done so effectively, unless we rather actually do it both on all the fronts, by providing an alternative, by educating the people, by enforcing the things in the enforcement level. We are still trying our level best, and the state of Haryana is very committed to that cause, and we will be rather looking forward for all stakeholders to rather actually go along with us in this task. Thank you very much. Thanks for the chance. Thank you.
thank you, sir. Thank you for joining. Thank you. So, Dr. Singhal, over to you. I mean, in terms of the recycling infrastructure in the state, is there any kind you are doing
As I
to
said,
gauge the
we are
amount of
very keen to, yeah. As I said, we are very keen to enhance the recycling infrastructure in the state. We are setting up a waste recycling park, which is one of his unique initiative. And we hope through this park, we not only enhance the recycling in the state, will also make it more efficient, more economically profitable. And it's sort of, because we have selected a location in a way that is near to Haryana, Delhi, and Rajasthan, so that we get all the waste streams from this NCR area and able to do a good job, hopefully. And then we will also vigorously implement the EPR policy, as Mr. Narayan just said. All the states are geared up to implement the EPR. We are also trying to encourage the industries to collect their own waste. Like we are talking to the dairy industry, why not they collect their own empty pouches? So once you recollect their own waste, then the waste is more clean, homogeneous. Then you are able to recycle it in a better manner, rather than mixing the waste first with the municipal waste and trying to segregate through the rectifiers or mechanical means. Always better that at least some part of the recycled waste is recollected by the generators themselves. So in sectors like milk, dairies, or maybe edible oils, this could, because they use a plastic which of very good quality. So this activity we are trying to encourage. We had meetings with the dairy industries. We are encouraging science that something like that can come up. So these are some of the NDVS we are trying to do. Hope we do much more with the cooperation of all the industries and all the stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Look forward to working more closely with you on this. And Tusharji, any comments from your side? I mean, you have been at the forefront on the compliance side. What are your views in terms of the recycling infrastructure in the country?
Yes, this is a very good questions. I think in this current scenario, which is going on, recycling infrastructure, this is very, I can think requirement of this moment. Because if you see, when you are talking about this target, which was fixed up by the government from 2023 and 24, plus the recyclate contain, how it will happen. what are the infrastructure, how many vendors are there. There are still many questions. It is not very clear, and it is very confusing for the brands. But when you are talking about, suppose some brands is wants to make some recycled content and 100% like rPET or something like that. Who are the agency to certify? What will be the logo? And how it will, what will be the policy of this recycled content? So that picture and this SOP is to be very, very cleared, and more and more recycling infrastructure should be built. I completely agree, because unless you build properly, unless a proper SOP is there, we cannot achieve the target which is given in 2023 and 24. Yes, clearly mentioned this percentage of rigid plastic recycled content. This is a flexible plastic, but how and who will do it and who are the agency? So I think this is the requirement. More and more recycling infrastructure is required in India.
Okay. Thank you. And I think we had a very good discussion in this session. And now over to Akram. Akram, can you please take the stage and confirm the next session, how it is going, and whether the panelists are joining or not.
Thank you.
And then we can move on to the next session.
Right. Thank you so much, Kamal, and all our speakers. Tushar sir, especially Michael, always great to have you. Tushar sir is always dynamic in terms of sharing perspectives. And we are really happy to have Vijay sir and also the MS, Honorable MS of Haryana State Pollution Control Board. I can see Vijay sir is always busy, but still he gave us time. And MS was in a meeting. So MS, from that, he hurried up to the office to connect in Zoom. Honorable Minister could not join in the end because of the internet issue. And wonderful. I'm requesting all our speakers from the next session to kindly come with camera. I'm requesting you, I'm taking you as speaker. Kindly accept my request so that we can go ahead with our next session. The session we have now is a very important one, where we will discuss about the perspectives from the perspectives of circularity. So we'll take stakeholder. We have some leading recyclers of the country who are joining us, and we'll be sharing their perspective. And yeah, our moderator of the session is Ms. Urmi Goswami, who is the assistant editor handling sustainability for long at the Economic Times. So Urmi, welcome, and thank you so much.
Thank you for having me and making me a part of this discussion. So, as you did you want? Sorry, I interrupted you.
Right. Thank you. And I also welcome Ashish Jain sir, a veteran in this space of recycling and plastic waste management.
Yeah.
And also welcome Sachin sir. Sachin sir, thank you so much for joining us. And two speakers will be joining us soon. So yeah, so the topic is from EPR to circularity. The very idea of EPR was to achieve a better plastic waste management infrastructure, and then how do we achieve circularity is all about that we're going to discuss. So with this, I will request Ms. Urmi to kindly take over the session, and we can start the session. I will request other speakers to join, so we can start with Ashish sir and with you, Urmiji.
Thank you, Akram, for the introduction. Basically, this session is about from EPR to circularity. I mean, from those of us who have been listening in through since the morning, we have been speaking about the first phase of it. Now, of course, we are looking at what happens next, because clearly single-use plastic is one part of our plastic waste. It is a big part of our plastic waste, but we will always have other waste as well, other portions of the plastic chain which will be part of the waste sort of component, and therefore the whole notion of for extended producer responsibility it becomes critical even in that context. So whether we are looking just at single-use plastics or a non-single-use plastic. But this conversation that we will have today is not just about EPR. It's about from where we look at EPR as the first step towards circularity, because that is critically where we need to be. And as all of us know that even within the realm of the plastics universe, but in the larger realm, we are on a short leash, so to speak. And this is the critical decade in which we have to get systems in place. In terms of climate change, in terms of environmental degradation, in terms of biodiversity protection. And as I don't have to tell any one of you about how ubiquitous plastic is, and therefore managing plastic becomes critical. And here, of course, the producers and those who are, and more critically, those who are involved like you in the other end of the business, the recycling, the reusing, the repurposing of materials become very, very critical. And I think that is where the conversation needs to move. The EPR regulation does touch upon this. It touches upon certain other issues which are also critical, which we heard mentioned in the last session on inclusion of proportion of recycled material in new products. But a big question which we seem to it seems to hang over our heads, but we don't seem to address it, is what is the nature of recycling that happens? Is it time for us to have a conversation about recycling that moves away from the old, which is the rat picker kabariwala and a repurpose model, and therefore a lot of downcycling that happens, to a more critical question, which is about not just about reusing, but recycling, and not recycling alone, upcycling, repurposing of material, that's recovery of materials, and then using it as a secondary source of primary materials, not just in terms of hydrocarbons, as the speaker in the last session spoke about, of how there is technology to reverse. But it's not just about that, it's about recovering other materials. So to take us on this rather uncharted territory of for India, from EPR to circularity, where we acknowledge that we are not really all there, is where I would invite all of you to plug in. And what I will do is, I have in our list of panelists today are people who are involved in the practical end, and we have two people, that's Dr. Pandey and Ms. Bhalla, who are involved on the other side. They're involved in policy, they're involved in the research, and basically I would then get we'll intersperse the conversation with them. So I'll start off with Mr. Ashish Jain, Director of the Indian Pollution Control Association. And before I hand over the sort of mic to you, just a quick word for all our speakers. Please try and keep your initial comments restricted to 3 to 4 minutes, so that we can have more time to converse with each other and get in other voices. Thank you. Mr. Jain, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Urmi, and thank you, Kamal, Akram, for organizing such a important conference today, and bring all the stakeholders to one platform so that we can discuss. Plastic is a big issue nowadays, not limited to India. It's a global issue nowadays, and we are getting this sense because we have international speaker also in our previous sessions, and they are also talking the same line which we are talking in everyday lives. So plastic is a issue, and I think plastic means our behavior is more as a subject of discussion rather plastic, because we consume plastic and then we dispose in an appropriate manner, and then plastic become a problem, and those littered or the uncollected plastic cause pollutions in different way: air pollution, water pollution, and soil pollution. And to control all these kind of issues, Government of India brought some rules and regulations, and it's not new rules regulations. It coming from 1990s, so there is a gradually evaluations of rules, regulation, terms, conditions, and involvement responsibility of different stakeholders. So by 2016, first time the producers, brand owners, importers brought up in the stakeholders and given them a responsibility to develop a collection back mechanism for the post-consumer plastic waste introduced into the Indian market, so that we can collect more, we can segregate more, and we can bring those collected plastic waste to the recycling industries or to the co-processing industries, and so that we can have clean environment and healthy or sustainable environments. Because but my apprehension that we took these regulations in different understanding, so different stakeholders misinterpret these kind of rules regulation, and that's a very unfortunate part of current scenario. I believe I was involved in designing the first EPR projects, and we executed first EPR project in India, and we developed the methodology how to implement EPR. And WeCare was the first consortium, which I was part of that consortium in designing, developing, and executing the first EPR plan. And the original intention of doing EPR is to strengthen the collection, segregation of litter plastic, because that's the only that's the original problem. We consume different products, and we littered or we dispose post-consumer plastic or other products in an appropriate manner.
Recording stopped.
That's cause a issue. So we design
Recording in
EPR,
progress.
we design EPR action plan to strengthen the collection. We reach to the rack pickers, we reach to the different consumers of plastic, educate them, trying to bring behavioral change toward the plastic waste, and trying to develop a sustainable supply chain for these kind of waste. There were some plastic items which were not collected earlier. Before 2018, there were no collection of MLP. There was no recycling or co-processing of MLP. So after our efforts of executing first EPR, Ministry of Environment brought amendment to the rules, and they allow use of MLP with the condition that if MLP can be co-processed or used as alternate source of energy, then brand owner producer can use MLP. But now the co-processing is not the solution to MLP. There are a lot of innovation happened in last 4 or 5 years, and now MLP can be used for upcycling, recycling. It can be used for road construction. We also set up a recycling plant in NCR, and we are making very beautiful product for MLP and other low-grade plastic. We are making boards, and that can be used in different applications in automobiles, construction, and furniture.
Mr. Jain, if I may ask you this question, you mentioned that one of the issues was about lack of people's understanding on in terms of collection and segregation.
Yeah.
And perhaps if you could just when we talk about EPR, I mean, how hamstrung is a producer? I mean, and I'm using the producer as a larger bucket of like a single shorthand. How hamstrung are they? What is their biggest challenge in discharging their duties if there is a problem about collection and segregation at source that is right from the household or the office, and that challenge is that and how critical a challenge that is, and what do you think should be done to address that?
Yeah,
because without that, all the responsibility in the world is not going to get us very far.
Yeah. You rightly highlighted the main cause of the entire problem, because it's a responsibility of producers, brand owners, importers to develop the collection back mechanism for the equivalent quantity of plastic waste introduced by them through the sale of their product into Indian market. And they don't have the expertise of developing this kind of supply chain. So they are carrying forward their responsibility to some agencies like us and like other panelists. So these are the people who have a better understanding of waste management system. They have better understanding of the supply chain, recyclability, segregation, who are the people who can collect those plastics. So the producer brand owners mostly now means initially I am talking about they have no idea how to collect, how to develop system, who are the key stakeholders, who are the recyclers. So they have no idea. Now, after doing lots of brainstorming and after involving those stakeholders to many important discussion. They have a pretty good idea. Means now they give good input in selection of stakeholders. They also part of various discussion with governments, and they also brought out their experience in making the policy, and their input also being considered by the government and other policymakers. But the real challenge, but mostly 90% of the case, brand owners or producers are considered as a financial tool. They just fund the mechanism and the execution being done by some other agency, maybe by the ULB or maybe by the WMA. And that's the major gap in executing EPR or interpreting EPR in a right way. It is started with the collection of MLP and channelizing into the co-processing, but nowadays most of the WMA or PRO are satisfying EPR responsibility by collecting RDF material from the dump yard by involving ULB. So I think this is the very unfortunate part, that we are compensate our EPR responsibility by collecting RDF from the dump yard and disposing that RDF to the co-processing unit like cement industry. So there is no link between EPR and circular economy.
Right.
Through circular means by disposing your collected waste to cement industry, there is no point of talking on circular economy. No. Circular economy means you collect something which is littered or which is uncollected and bring to some good supply chain, make some good products.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Jain. I will now move on to, and we'll come back to this conversation, but I want to get everybody to have their first say before we move into a conversation. I'll now move on to Mr. Anurag Tiwari, the co-founder of Rekas Innovations Private Limited. Mr. Tiwari, the thing I want you to address really is about uncollected waste and the problem that Mr. Jain mentioned in terms of how EPR is being sort of doled out, how EPR is being unfolded, which is basically, you go to a place where the collection has already happened and actually the uncollected doesn't get collected. Now, there is a big political problem that you might run into, especially with local governments, and that is about informal labor. Now, that is one bit of the conversation that we need to have. How do we ensure that this informal labor, is skilled enough to be able to do the job, which ultimately requires upscaling of materials? Recovery of materials doesn't happen properly because we have untrained, unskilled informal labor. And I'm wondering whether, as you do your introductory remarks, you keep this in mind, because at the end of the day, in law, the producer is responsible. But how is the producer being hamstrung in actually living up to their responsibility?
Thank you, Urmi ma'am. Thanks for.
Mr. Tiwari?
Yes, ma'am. I'm audible, ma'am.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Thank you for raising this point. Yes, the bottom of the pyramid stakeholder means the waste worker community. They are actually requiring the most importance, our focus to uplift their livelihood and create impact in their life, create value in their life. The whole objective of the whole means all the efforts that we are putting together is to create a real change in their lifestyle. Yes, but as we discussed many times in many sessions, in many programs, the stakeholder who are financing this whole thing is the producer, or who are responsible for this whole collection and everything, the producer. But I want to add something more in this. Mm-hmm. Another stakeholder who is actually driving force for the whole process is recycler. Recycler is a guy who is adding value, who is creating value in the waste, converting waste into something which is having a more value. So if the material which is not having value, we cannot derive value from discussing or segregating something which is actually not having value. So lesser things. So if we want to make a bigger, means if we want to create value, we need to add value in that particular thing. So the recycler who can create circularity, the recycler who can create more money for all the stakeholders who are investing time, energy, money in the whole supply chain. So producer can involve 2, 3, 4, 5 rupees or 7, 8, 10 rupees into whole thing in Indian currency. But actually, the money who can means who what will help the whole process is bigger than 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 rupees. It is 70, 80, 90 rupees. Like the Indian Oil is one of the biggest buyer and supplier of plastic resin. They are looking forward to buy material at 60 rupees per kg. Means if they will buy material on 60 rupees, they will fund this whole process. Why material is requiring 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 rupees from the brand owners? It is actually the funding partner is not the brand owner. Funding partner is the Indian Oil companies who are actually using reprocessed material as their post-consumer resin as a PCR in their creating the circularity in their whole ecosystem. So as our Prime Minister Modi has mentioned, to Swachh Bharat 1 and Swachh Bharat 2.0, I think we should think about the EPR 2.0, and many brand owners are looking forward to work on this model. Like the new policy is mentioning about the recycling content and forcing about or asking brand owners to do recycling as a preferred thing, and gradually they are increasing the rate of mandate recycling for the EPR completion of the as a compliance. So
right
means they are asking industry to move forward for the recycling.
So then if I understand what you're saying is basically the mandatory recycling component will drive producers and consumers of that material to invest in the recycling because they have to meet that target. Is that what you're saying?
Ma'am, mandatory word is not voluntary or is not having the if somebody will do with their gut, it is not a matter if it is mandatory or not. So the brand owners,
right?
Circularity is not a choice. Circularity is for the survival. If we want to work together, if we want to work longer, we need to think about the circularity. And brand owners are thinking about circularity not because of the compliances, because of their responsibility towards the environment. We as WeCare working with many brand owners who are contributing their EPR targets for particular states and asking us to handhold and involve some recyclers, and they are involving themselves, the brand owners are involving themselves to take strategic decisions like what type of machinery the recycler is using or going to upgrade in their plants, what type of material they are sourcing. If they are not having material, with the funding of EPR, companies like WeCare as PRO are helping them or sourcing material on behalf of them and supplying material to the recyclers with that type of quality which is actually required for that kind of machinery what they installed on the basis of on the discussion we did with them, and they are making products means the resin. We personally believe the scalable model is make plastic again.
Okay.
So we like in last session one panelist mentioned about the dairy companies need to collect their plastic waste, their boxes and all. What will happen after the collection?
Right.
They need to have a LDP plastic recycling machinery and plant or experts who will take care about this whole thing. So yes, we work with Mother Dairy, we are working with Amul, we are working with Sharda Dairy, we are working with many companies who are into this dairy industry. If they will ask for the PCR from us, where we can get, we need to have this whole thing before the demand creates. So we are on the right path. brand owners are thinking about this. Many companies like Dabur, companies like Dabur, Nestle, ITC, everybody is asking us to do something with the recycler on a strategic level to develop a sustainable, matured supply chain for the longer term, because the ITC or Nestle or Dabur, they are going to produce or utilize plastic waste, plastic material for next 10, 15, 20 years. So if they are looking for
okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
No, sorry, complete your sentence. I'm sorry to have interrupted you.
Thank you. So if brand owners are looking forward to do something for a longer term, they are having a longer strategy and they are asking us to do something with a longer vision to create a value for the supply chain, for a sustainable EPR implementation and compliances, and for the circularity and for the stakeholders like waste workers, traders, the collection centers, and the recyclers.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Tiwari. Dr. Pandey, I'm going to come to you now because you have heard, two people from the practical side, and and one of the things that comes through is, we have got the EPR regulations in place that they have been made more robust. I'm sure that we can make them even more robust. Regulations are always a work in progress. But the aim is not just about, making EPR robust, but to move towards circularity. And, from long conversations with you, I know that is central to your thinking. And I'm wondering, in light of what Mr. Tiwari just said, where he is talking about using the material again as raw material for production, and of course the other issue of upscaling from recycled material. I'm wondering, what are the challenges that we face? What are the missing pieces of the puzzle, both in terms of regulation, but also in terms of enabling that change to happen?
Sure. Thank you, Urmi, and let me also thank the organizers for inviting me here as a panelist. EPR, as this being introduced in the country for plastics, and to some extent also for e-waste, it's a good beginning. It's a step in right direction. But what we see, the way it is being the policies framed, somehow I feel that it's focused more towards collection challenges and recycling, and doesn't focus on the other two pillars of circularity or waste hierarchy so much. Though it talks about that ultimately EPR should bring in resource efficiency, it should bring in circular economy principles in waste management, but it's not talking so much on waste reduction, reuse, and focus more on collection and recycling. So, and recycling has its own challenges, especially if you look at plastics. It depends on from which source the plastic is coming from, and whether it's plastic with additives or plastic without additives. Recycling has its own challenges in terms of handling such material. So the current challenges, if I talk of recycling, is basically how to basically look at products which are of high quality. Also, products which can be recycled again and again. And there are many countries which have started looking at addressing, including we have policymakers have started that debate in India as well. And a typical example is PET resin, which we use for beverage bottles, where in India, a few years back, it was strict no that it can't go back to bottle again because of FSSAI restrictions.
Right.
Now we have there's a window open where we're talking of recycling PET, but again back from bottle to bottle, and not to fabric and various applications out of fabric, which may not be so circular, though it creates value, but it may not be so circular as it seems. So these are some of the initiatives, and also the current plastic ban on single-use plastics is opening a lot of window for other interesting practical applications, which we are looking at now in terms of looking at some of the alternate packaging
Right.
items which are going to be banned, and looking at their life cycle on how these packagings are going to be introduced soon. So I'll stop here now.
Yeah, Dr. Banda, I'll come back to you because, it's important to kind of plug in this conversation on from the practical side and the academic and policy side, and you are like 2 in 1 for us. So therefore, I'll come back to you again. I will now turn to Mr. Rakesh Mishra, Head of Mishra Traders, Environment Care Solutions from Madhya Pradesh. And Mr. Mishra, I want to come back to you with the same questions I have had for the other 2 practitioners. But in light of what Dr. Pandey said, where do you see your role in our transition towards a circular economy? So basically, we stop talking in terms of just collecting the waste and ensuring it's disposed properly or it's recycled into something, but actually it becoming a source for raw materials for the next round of products.
धन्यवाद उर्मी जी। जैसा कि अभी सभी लोगों ने EPR के बारे में बोला और रह गया वेस्ट की बात, तो हमारा जो बेस है वो रैग पिकर्स से जुड़ा हुआ, कबाड़ बीनने वाले लेबरों से जुड़ा हुआ है, और हम उन्हें अनस्किल्ड बोलते हैं। लेकिन मैं तो ये मानता हूं कि उनसे ज्यादा स्किल हमें भी नहीं है, क्योंकि वो एक एक पार्ट को, स्क्रैप के या कि प्लास्टिक के एक एक पार्ट को हमसे बेहतर तरीके से जानते हैं। वही उसको कलेक्ट करते हैं, उसी को सेग्रीगेशन करते हैं, उसके बाद वो रिसाइकलिंग में या कि को प्रोसेसिंग में जाता है। और सबसे बड़ा जो EPR ने जीवन दान दिया प्लास्टिक वेस्ट को, ये जो डंप होते थे धीरे धीरे खत्म हो रहे हैं, और जो आज की डेट में स्वच्छ भारत मिशन जब से आया तब से इस कार्य में बहुत तेजी आई। और हमारे जितने भी यहाँ पे मेन आशीष जी हैं, काफी अनुभव है, और मैं तो ये मानता हूं कि सारी चीजें तो उन्होंने सामने ला करके रखी है। और मेरा सिर्फ कथन यही है कि रिसाइकलिंग में तो हम जा रहे हैं, और रिसाइकलिंग शुरू से चल रही है। जब से हमने जाना रिसाइकलिंग चल रही थी, प्लास्टिक आता था, सेग्रीगेट होता था, ग्राइंडिंग होता, फिर वो किसे कहाँ पे लगता है, चाहे LD हो, HD हो, PP हो, PET हो, जो भी हो। लेकिन मेन जो MLP का पार्ट आता है, अभी सिर्फ उसका एक ही है कि रोड कंस्ट्रक्शन में जाएगा या कि को प्रोसेसिंग में जाएगा। अगर वो रिसाइकलिंग में आता है तो उससे हमारे लिए इन्वायरमेंट के लिए सबसे बड़ी जो जीत होगी, वो उसको सीट बनाने से लेकर के प्लाई बनाने तक, ये सारी चीजों में काफी हद तक उसका समर्थन मिलेगा उसमें। और एक बड़ा जो अमाउंट लगता है किसी भी घर को या कि ऑफिस को अगर बनाना है, तो उसमें लगने वाला फर्नीचर कम से कम, अगर 20 बाई 20 का एक ऑफिस बनाते, कम से कम 15 लाख का फर्नीचर लगता है। उसके अंदर 15 लाख रुपए का तो लगभग मुझे लगता है कि प्लाई ही लग जाती है। अगर इस हिसाब से अगर हम MLP को रिसाइकलिंग में लेकर के जाए तो ये बहुत बड़ी अपॉर्चुनिटी होगी। और जो EPR का मुख्य उद्देश्य है, रिसाइकलिंग वाली चीजें तो रिसाइकलिंग हो रही है और पहले से हो रही थी, मेन जो उद्देश्य है EPR का वो पूर्ण होगा।
जी, और मिश्रा जी, एक सवाल है आपसे। आप MLP की बात कर रहे हैं, जो जैन साहब भी पहले बोले हैं, आशीष जी भी बोल रहे थे, और अनुराग जी भी बोले। ये जो MLP की जो बात है, आप उस पर फोकस कर रहे हैं, पर इसका अभी कोई बाधा है क्या कि MLP को आप उसका रिसाइकलिंग करें? मतलब उसमें क्या बाधा है? एक कानूनी बाधा है या कोई प्रैक्टिकल बाधाएं हैं?
देखिए, चूंकि इसका जो पावर होता है, सब हर प्रोडक्ट की एक स्ट्रेंथ होती है प्लास्टिक में, LD की, HD की, PET की, इनकी इतनी अच्छी स्ट्रेंथ होती है कि आप जल्दी से इनको कन्वर्ट कर सकते। लेकिन MLP में स्ट्रेंथ उतनी नहीं आती। उसका कोई फॉर्मूला, जैसे कुछ हमारे जो है तो और साथियों ने कुछ मशीनें लगाई हैं, उसकी वो सीट बना रहे हैं, उसको ग्राइंड करके प्लाई बना रहे हैं, बहुत सारे प्रोडक्ट, लेकिन धीरे धीरे चूंकि जब ये बाजार में अभी होता क्या है, कोई भी आइटम बाजार में कब बिकता है? जब उसकी गुणवत्ता लोग देख लेते हैं।
जी।
जब गुणवत्ता उसकी सामने धीरे धीरे आएगी तो लोग धीरे धीरे, ऐसा नहीं है कि एमएलपी की रिसाइकलिंग नहीं चालू हुई, अभी तो रिसाइकलिंग में जो अगर एमएलपी का जो पार्ट है वो मुझे लगता है कि केवल 5 से 7% होगा शायद, आशीष जी मुझे लगता है। और अगर एमएलपी जिस हिसाब से बाजार में निकल रहा है, वो अगर पूरा पार्ट रिसाइकलिंग होने लगेगा तो ये समस्या ही खत्म हो जाएगी।
जी।
होता क्या है उर्मी जी, जब किसी भी प्रोडक्ट की, किसी भी वस्तु की कीमत नहीं होती है तो वो बाजार में ढेर में पड़ा रहता है। आज पेट बॉटल की कीमत है 40 रुपए किलो है, वो आप उसको खाइए, एक साथ चिप्स और एक बॉटल पानी लीजिए, तो खा करके आप रोड में फेंक दीजिए, 5 मिनट के अंदर वो पेट बॉटल खत्म हो जाएगी वहां से, लेकिन वो आपका जो चिप्स का पैकेट है वो वहीं पे रहेगा। क्यों? क्योंकि उसकी वैल्यू नहीं है। जब तक वैल्यू पे काम नहीं हो रहा है खत्म नहीं होगा, और धीरे धीरे संभवतः 2-4 साल के अंदर इसका तो बड़ा तेजी से लगे हुए हैं, और आने वाले समय तो बहुत ही अच्छा होगा एमएलपी के लिए। जो उद्देश्य ईपीआर का,
I'm in a meeting now. So, what you said your name is?
वो उनका म्यूट, उनका ये खुला रहेगा, आप म्यूट हो गया। आप बताइए, सॉरी मिश्रा जी।
जी
मिश्रा जी, आप बोल रहे थे।
मैं ये कह रहा था एमएलपी जिस, हेलो उर्मी जी।
जी, मैं हूँ यहाँ, सुनाई दे रही है आपकी आवाज।
तो वही एमएलपी के बारे में बोल रहा था कि जिस वस्तु की वैल्यू होती है वो बाजार से हट जाती है, और जिस वस्तु की वैल्यू नहीं होगी वो आपको ढेर में मिलेगा।
जी जी जी,
समस्या सबसे बड़ी वही है। अच्छा, चूंकि अभी जो प्रोडक्ट बन रहे हैं, चाहे वो सीट हो या कि किसी भी ऐसी चीज में यूज कर फाइल में है, तो जब तक वो प्रॉपर वे पे नहीं आ जाती और प्रैक्टिकली वो बाजार में नहीं आ जाती, उसकी लोग वैल्यू नहीं समझ पाते, तब तक वो जो है तो वो एक सिर दर्द है। लेकिन आने वाले समय मुझे लगता है कि एमएलपी ढूंढने से भी नहीं मिलेगा, जिस हिसाब से लोग उसमें काम कर रहे हैं। हमारा भी प्रयास है कि लगभग 6 महीने के अंदर एक हम भी एमएलपी की रिसाइकलिंग यूनिट डाल रहे हैं।
राइट।
तो
ओके, सो दैट इज ग्रेट। सो बेसिकली जो आप बोल रहे हैं कि there has to be an assigned value. जब तक हम वैल्यू नहीं देंगे तब तक उसका मतलब एक जो हमारा कलेक्शन का हम जो प्रॉब्लम बोल रहे हैं, that can be resolved through putting a market value on the MLP. But you know, I would like to involve मिश्रा जी, आप हमारे साथ रहिए जितना देर आप रह सकते हैं, क्योंकि मैं फिर आपके पास वापस आऊंगी। I would like to ask Mr. Sachin Sharma, founder director of GEM Enviro Management. You know, this thing Mr. Mishra mentioned about the lack of value that creates a problem. What he's talking about is a solution that can bridge both a collection problem, a littering problem, and finding value. Where, to your mind, what is the intervention that we require right now to ensure that you know, MLP has a value and has its place in the recycling sort of universe and upcycling universe, hopefully? Where do you think the intervention is required?
Yeah, thanks, ma'am, and thanks to WeCare also for inviting me as a speaker in this webinar. Now, as Mr. Ji rightly said, that any commodity which has got a value has always, you know, you will find takers for that. And if any commodity does not have any value, then you will not find any takers for that. And the biggest example here is the PET bottles. And the PET bottles are almost say 90% collected and recycled in our country, whereas this number is on a much lower side in case of the other plastics like, you know, LD, HD, or say MLP, etc., where MLP it's hardly like, you know, less than 5%. Yeah. And what has happened in PET industry is this, that in PET industry there is a beautiful commercial model which is already there in the country, where this PET bottle are recycled to form the fiber, which is called as a recycled polyester staple fiber. And we along with our group companies, Ganesh and all that, we are the largest like recycler of this PET plastic bottles in India with a capacity of more than 1.5 lakhs ton per year. And going forward, as the government has also allowed this introduction of recycled content in the the food grade plastics also, so that will definitely give a boost to this industry in terms of addition of more recycling capacities. And once the recycling capacities will be added, so it will lead to better and higher collection. Now, so the important point here is that the economics derives all the most of the actions, and the product which has got a higher economic value, definitely it will be picked up from the streets. The other point what I would like to highlight here is that what has happened because of the EPR thing. Now the most of the organizations have started reducing the weight of their packaging. Now, the PET bottle, which was earlier at 20 to 20, 1 liter PET bottle, earlier it used to be 20 grams, 22 grams. Now it is about say 15 grams, 16 grams. Now, what we have seen is that, the material, which is of a higher weight, even if it's a flexible material also, if you see the polythene sheets or a flexible material, which is thick, has got a higher weight, so definitely it will be picked up by the rack picker or the waste picker, or the people might reuse it. You see, the thicker bottles, people, they reuse it in India to store water and the, other things.
Right.
But if you reduce the weight of the packaging to such an extent, then it becomes difficult to, reuse it and also to collect and recycle also. So,
right.
Yeah, so that is a very, very important point here, because what we have seen is that the income of the rack pickers is gradually declining, because see, a rack picker can collect a limited number of bottles every day. Say, for example, if we can collect say 10 kgs, sorry, not 10 kgs, say maybe 3 to 5 kgs bottles per day. So earlier, and he gets paid by the weight. So earlier he used to get say X amount, then definitely
now it's becoming X minus.
Yeah, exactly.
He has to collect X plus to get the same amount weight.
Same amount, yeah. So my point is that to the brand owners is that that you reduce the packaging, but it should not be reduced to such an extent. Then the collection becomes totally unviable. Then in that case, this thing will become more and more problematic in nature.
Right.
Because if you see the problem with the MLP collection is that the MLP are like, for example,
lightweight.
It's a very, very lightweight, 2 grams, 3 grams, or maximum like 5 grams. So, there is no incentive for anyone to collect this thing. So if it is further reduced, say 1 gram or 1.5 grams, so
it will become even tougher.
Yeah, it will become even tougher.
So, Mr. Sharma, I want to come back to you on that point because there is Mr. Amarendra Kumar who I haven't gone to yet. But Mr. Kumar, you're going to have to give me a few more minutes because I want to just get in Dr. Pandey once again, just to sort of put you in, to ask you to sort of think about this while I go to Mr. Kumar. This thing that Mr. Sharma mentioned about producers reducing the weight of the packaging and it becoming unviable for collection. Now, there many conversations have happened, but isn't a central flaw in the Indian sort of recycling, circular economy sort of conversation when it comes to waste? Is the sacrosanct place, it's almost the unviable place we give to the rack picker and the kabariwala. And perhaps it is time for us to relook at how collection happens, the role that these people play. Because frankly speaking, in no universe should it be right for a 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old boy to be rummaging through waste to make earnings possible. It shouldn't be the case. And perhaps it is time, therefore, we relook at this conversation. There's a sociological aspect to the EPR, to the circularity question. So while you're thinking about this, I'm going to rush to Mr. Kumar, who has been very patient, and I'm going to ask him a version of the same question, and which is when you look at through through this session, we have been having this conversation, which is focused on a couple of things. One is, of course, the collection issue and the problems that have now presented itself on that end. Then there is the technology or the issue, and then is what you do with the recycled material. Are we recycling or are we mining it for new material? And I'm wondering, as somebody who actually runs, you're a whole-time director at Ramki, and vice president of, I'm sorry, I've mixed up the two parts of your company, but basically Ramki is a big player in the waste in the waste universe. And I'm wondering then, how do you look at it? How the situation where we are now? Are we just trying to clean up what we have, or are we actually making the transition towards circularity?
Thank you, Urmi. And first of all, let me thank Policy Times and WeCare for organizing this and inviting me over here. On the first note, let me just quickly correct a couple of things. As Ramki, we are the largest waste management company in India, and we handle almost 7 million tons of waste every year. And we are one company which is also ensuring that the Singapore stays clean the way it is, because we handle the entire city cleaning, airport, and operations of Singapore as well. So whenever you visit the Changi airport, always feel proud that there is an Indian company which is keeping Changi the way it is, and that company is Ramki. Now coming to the specific subject, what we are here to discuss, and I just want to take a moment to run 2 slides, if I may.
Sure.
So I hope the screen is visible for everyone. So as EPR as a subject is something which is very core to our organization, because we are one of the largest EPR players in this country. And we really have been working on this concept since the time inception, since the concept started to come up. We believe that as EPR, as a concept, is a fantastic and a beautiful collaboration model. And it's a collaboration across spectrum, across agencies, across bureaucracy. So on one hand, we have the producers, we have mass consumers, we have the informal sectors, the rag pickers, which Mr. Pandey is going to talk about, and I also have a short story to share over there. We have these urban local bodies, we have the waste management agencies like us, we have recyclers like us, and we have co-processors like us. So we are present across these 3-4 spectrums, and we have the regulators like CPCB or MOER. It's a beautiful concept, and the thread runs across all these 8 stakeholders. And unless all these stakeholders are completely aligned and see a single version of its execution, the beauty of EPR will still remain on the paper, while we'll have some of these shining cases somewhere in the country. So this is something which we always look at as an organization, that yes, EPR has been there across the world and EPR has been there in India, but has it been able to really solve the problem on ground? Probably no. And these are just 2 pictures. One from a global example, which is very, very well displayed. I'm sure you all have seen this picture. And the second one from a city which I don't want to name, but it's known as the Innovation Hub of India. But look at how the plastics is being handled in the innovation capital of the country. So while there is so much which has been done, but there is so much more which is supposed to be done. So that brings me to what as a company we believe can drive EPR to achieve its ultimate objective, which is to achieve true circularity. First and foremost, infrastructure creation. Unless we create infrastructure, right infrastructure across the country, not just at few centers or few pockets, we will not be able to achieve what it is ultimately destined to. And at this point in time, I just want to talk about a small issue, and there are reports out there. The recycling which is happening today, in the way it is happening today, there is a massive generation of microplastics inside these plants. And these microplastics are ultimately going to inside the people who are actually working on those premises. And after 10 years of working in a plant, which is largely prevalent in India today, the surveys, there is a huge quantity of microplastics which is already getting into these people. That's a problem which nobody wants to talk about, but that's the problem which we want to address by right infrastructure creation. Second and most important is to have those supporting policies And while we can't push the buck to the agencies, because we are the people who are there, who understand the reality on the ground, we want to work and we continue to work with these regulators to ensure that the right policies are there in place. And while the policies are made, it is important to ensure that there is a regulatory supporting infrastructure also in place to ensure that the policies are executed in the letter and spirit when it comes to execution. We all know what happens in EPR today. While there are companies and there are agencies who wants to do it in full letter and spirit, but we also know that what are the other practices which goes on in the market, which dilutes the overall theme of the way EPR is supposed to be done. Fourth is the operational mechanism. How the EPR which was made in Sweden or the EPR which works in Europe, if we just want to control C and control V in Indian context, it's just not going to work. So the policies needs to be adopted, but it also needs to be adapted to Indian conditions. What works in Sweden will never work in India, or even what works in Delhi will not work in Mumbai. We are a country which is so diverse, having such a different demographic, that even the policies needs to be tailored at regional levels. I don't even believe in a national policy. There has to be a regional policy to support the execution of this entire EPR, and having those right ecosystem catalysts, for which we believe that the MRFs, the source aggregation centers, the dry waste collection centers, those are the right catalysts. The vehicles which are having 4-bin concepts, those are the right catalysts which will help to drive this entire. And that brings me to how we envision EPR being executed as a company, how we are executing it today. So if you just look at plastics, most of the plastics comes to our material recovery facilities. And then we all know that there are broadly today 3 types. One, where we can't do anything good about them. It has to go for co-processing, either at waste to energy or cement plant. So we run 2 waste to energy plants in India, while there are 3 more which are under construction that will take our total installed capacities to around 150 megawatt. So these plastics gets consumed as an alternate fuel in our waste to energy that generates clean electricity. And while it does that, there is a bottom ash which gets created, and that bottom ash we are recycling into pavers. So this is a true circular economy of plastics which cannot be recycled today, given the technological limitations or challenges what we have. There is nothing which goes as waste. The plastics generates electricity, the ash comes out as pavers, and those pavers goes back to the municipal corporation of Hyderabad and Delhi for all the pavements which are being constructed. The second concept which we are working on is on pyrolysis to convert plastics into high quality oil. There are work which has happened in the last 20 years, but we are trying to support some of the new startups which has come up in this space to scale up these technologies so that we can support them, because we handle 6 million tons of municipal waste every year. So we have one of the largest deposits of plastics, if we can put it that way. And the third wave is upcycling. We run these plastic recycling plants, the easy to recycle plastics like HT, LD and all those PET, which we are converting into granules or into bags or into pavers or tiles or all sorts of things, which can again go back into the market. And while we do that, we take due care that after one recycling, this product can be recycled again. It's not one time we recycle a bag. A garbage bag has a shelf life of hardly 3 months. So if we recycle it once, it will again become a waste after 3 months. So we have to take all those due care to ensure that again after 3 months, what we make can be recycled again. So our plants are with those technologies to ensure that that can be achieved, so that we can recycle it 6, 7, 8, 10 times during its entire life cycle before actually rejecting it into either for waste to energy co-processing or something else. That's what we as in terms of EPR and how EPR can drive circular economy practices. We'll be happy to take more questions around this thing.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kumar, for that, and for definitely the last draft tells us where what can happen and how circularity can actually happen. Before I sort of I now want to go back to Dr. Pandey, and perhaps there is clearly a policy question. I mean, I asked you another question ahead, but perhaps you could combine the two, because there is clearly a space for policy and space for research. So I'm wondering if you can, plug into both, because, that's your expertise.
Sure. I mean, let me start with Sachinji's dilemma. And I completely agree. When we say 3R, reduce, reuse, recycle, we are not, certainly in the case of plastics, not meaning reduction in waste, weight of the containers. And I remember, few months back, 1 or 2 years back, there were containers which were so thin, water bottles, which were actually also difficult to handle while opening and while drinking water from them. So, and since our recycling in India is largely dependent on our informal sector, their collection abilities, and at low cost at which they can collect the waste, because municipal collection is not very efficient, and our own waste disposal processes are not very efficient. We have to depend on informal sector for waste collection and aggregation, and then finally sending it for recycling. And if the weight of the containers are so less that they become unattractive to waste collectors, then again, it would start a problem of littering, which we are planning, which we are trying to avoid. Littering, would happen, but this collection from of the littered material would not happen if they are too they cease to be attractive to waste collectors. So I completely agree. And when we see, and there has to be some mandate to producers of or users of these containers, that they should adhere to minimum thickness of all the containers, so that it's effectively picked up on discarding and go for recycling. And waste reduction in that sense, in my interpretation, is actually not actually going for using or acquiring something which you don't use or which you don't want. So unnecessary buying or unnecessary accumulation of things should be avoided, and that is where waste reduction actually fits in more, as per my interpretation. Of course, in classical terms, it also applies to industries trying to reduce their waste in production processes. Second, what was the other question which you'd asked?
I had basically asked is it time we relook at this question of how we manage the waste, how we collect the waste, because that's a critical. There are three parts to this conversation, right? The collection, the recycling, which includes upscaling it, and the mining of, and finally the mining of materials in the recycling. So recycling for upscaled products and recycling for resources. Sure. So that's mining for, and whereas is it time we start looking at this slightly more differently than we are looking at it now?
Sure. So collection actually has to be facilitated by, it has to be joint responsibility model, as EPR actually doesn't talk of joint responsibility model, but we strongly believe that successful implementation of EPR has to be good partnership between city governments and brand owners and manufacturers and PIBOs, which we call in EPR. It has to be good partnership between these two entities. And in previous session also, someone was saying, I believe Member Secretary Haryana State Pollution Control Board was saying that there's a need to put up collection receptacles in cities at the place where they are visible. And whenever people like to discard something, they know they have easy access to such places where they can discard. Initially, maybe we can do away with looking at segregating that into a lot of other different categories, even if like the basic segregation which happens at the airport can be, or at railway stations can be tried. There are challenges in installing such receptacles in cities at suitable locations, but it has to be started somewhere. And manufacturers and producers and city governments will have to work closely to basically provide those facilities.
So, and also then we'll have to look at rescaling, retraining people who are now involved in primary collection, because primary collection will no longer be their job. Or their source of income. Actually, it's not a job, it's a source of income and livelihood for them. There's a question from Michael Rada, who was a panelist in the previous session, is whether one should look to Europe as one could look to Europe as a model, because considering that Europe puts all its waste and sends it off, sends it off. Have I got your question right, Mr. Rada?
Completely right. Completely right.
And I'm wondering if I can sort of put another spin to Mr. Rada's question then, and say that we talk about global. I mean, I know supply chains are a big question, big issue right now, and we all talk about it. But is there a way, basically, we can have a better global sort of mining for more materials that's possible? I mean, so there's Mr. Rada's question of whether Europe is actually a model or not, and the second question, which is mine, is there a way we can have a more aggressive system for mining for materials from what we call waste? I mean, in the real sense of achieving true circularity. And is there a global scale we are talking about here? Is it an opportunity for us? Anybody? I would like, Mr. Jain, Mr. Sharma. I mean, any of the.
So it is quite possible because it is already happening actually. But the problem is we cannot do the documentation of all resource mining happening nowadays because it's being done by the informal sectors. So we don't have actual data, what is being collected, what is being segregated, and what is being recycled by the recycling industries. So most of the recycling industries are also not registered with the State Pollution Control Board or the ULB. So we don't have data. So data is the major issue. You see, India is a big country. We are 130 crore population, and waste generation rate is also quite good. We are generating 67 million tons of waste every year. So waste is a good resources. So we are segregating waste. Our informal sector segregating waste. They are supplying all these segregated waste to different recycling industries. So, so that way we are very aggressive, but we don't have data to document at a global level.
Dr. Pandey, I want you to address Mr. Rada's original question, because I know you have looked very closely at both the European legislations and, of course, our own regulations. Do you think that they are, given that they ship out their waste, are they a model?
There are certain good practices to learn from them. I agree. I mean, in terms of collection and kind of avoiding littering and regulating littering. Recycling, fortunately, we have not reached to that capacities where we kind of outstrip our availability of material to our recycling capabilities, because we have been closely following certain European countries where they have so much recycling capacity that they are looking for waste from other countries to basically run their recycling industry. So, we often talk of improving our waste sorting procedures, incorporating technologies from European countries. But I mean, our recycling partners or waste aggregators would agree that our informal sector or waste managers at the lower level are, smart enough to segregate different polymers physically as well. And some kind of pre-processing often is required in our waste, pre-cleaning and pre-processing, for which certain amount of manual intervention would be required. So, that's the take which I have on the topic.
Mr. Rada, yes, you wanted to come in.
I am living in the middle of Europe. Czechia is generally in the heart. Our government says that we are recycling 92% of all that we lead. We are the leaders. The reality is 12. There is 18%, 80%, 80, which is the difference between the governmental numbers and the reality. The fact is that the 80% is being shipped in containers all around the globe. So, which means the European maybe speak about the implementation. They can write great laws and regulations, but the implementation is not in place.
Yes.
And this is the problem. Because if we consider if I ask on a stage where is 1,000 people on a conference, who recycle in Europe? Almost everyone move the hand. And I'm standing there and say, sorry, you are lying because you do not recycle. You sort. And that's a very big difference. So we are good in sorting already because there was a long time. And I do understand that in India was not this long time. But on the other hand, I will suggest not to really look at Europe on a role model, take the good part, but then stay with the Indian, because what I have learned in the last 2 years when I deal really strongly with India, with Industry 5.0, you are much farther than any other nation in the world, because you still have your origin. The Indian origin is historic, and your country never wasted in such a volume, never, ever.
So we're getting there.
Unfortunately, you are getting in this, you are copying in this the European and US development, and that's wrong. Because you are original, you are one, get back to your roots. This is what I'm teaching in Industry 5.0. Get back to your, and be proud on your Indian roots. Because you are better than us.
Right.
And I am, as I said, I am living in the heart, and I'm sorry to say that, but this is the reality which I see for the last 2 years. So please be as good as you are, go forward, don't copy us, we are not good. But if you will go with Industry 5.0, I will be very happy, of course.
Of course. I have this one thing that I'll just come to you, Mr. Tiwari, and perhaps very quickly, each one of you could address this, is clearly we need to have a better appreciation for what we put out as waste, and the capacity to use it as raw material. I mean, basically, it's only waste if it's of no use to anybody. And that part of the conversation is where the circularity resides. What needs to happen now, going forward, for that to happen? Because everything else will sort itself. You know, you won't be using pre-teenage children to pick up your, to collect your, to sort through your garbage. You will learn to do it yourself. As you know, as Mr. Ji, who I think has now not with us at this moment, mentioned, is if you put a value on something, that's when we will see movement in it. So how is it, what is it that we require to do to create value in what today we call waste? Very quickly, if you can start, Mr. Tiwari, then Mr. Jain, then Mr. Kumar. Mr. Rana, you can join in as well, and Dr. Pandey, and and Mr. Sharma. So in that order, Mr. Tiwari, you go first. Very quickly. You're on mute. You're on mute, Mr. Tiwari.
So basically, means the whole focus of my whole understanding of this subject is we need to create an industry as a recycling as an industry. So as Mr. Michael has mentioned, they are good at sorting and they are supplying material to the nations who can recycle. We can utilize these kind of opportunities. We should not, means, yes, the fact is they are not recycling, but who are recycling? So if we utilize these kind of opportunities and develop our industry as a matured industry, as one panelist mentioned, like we are recycling from last 20, 30, 40 years, but recycling is informal. We are not compliant in recycling. That's why we cannot give the accounting to the Europe like we are recycling.
A more formalized recycling industry, which is technologically savvy, more professional, and with standards. That's what you think is where we require to go.
Industry, the recycling industry should work as an iron ore industry or a power generation industry. Means it is.
It should be an industry professionally run with technological underpinnings and rules and standards.
Yeah,
thank you, Mr. Tiwari. Mr. Jain, you're up next. I'm sorry, it's kind of like a buzzer round because we're coming to the end.
So I completely agree with Mr. Tiwari and other speakers' comments. So we need a transition to these waste management sectors. So informal should transit to the formal sector. We need more professionals. The recycling industry should follow all the compliance, and it would be good for them also if they follow all the rules, regulation, and do the recycling as per the SOPs or recommendation published by the government. Once they start doing this, our recycling rate will go like anything, and we will be the model country in the globe, that we collect maximum, we recycle maximum. We just need to convert those data into reality. So be more professional and compliance industry.
Right. And also you basically compliance has to be the big thing so that we can weed out the bad actors, which you said already exist and drag down the whole system and the nature of the final product
then
as well.
The whole system will change. It means once you compliance, you will follow the right technology, right procedure. You will take care of your worker also. Like one of the speakers mentioned, they are exposed to the microplastic. So once you go for the registration and you do all procedure as per the standards, so workers' health will be taken care of.
Again, taken care of. You know, what you mentioned, of course, is very true for your industry, but it could implementation and compliance are a problem, I think, in this country across the board. So you could be talking.
So we means it's not a single person or single authority responsibility. It's a collaborative approach. And as an Indian, as a citizen of the country, this is my responsibility to do the right thing in a right way.
And we should ensure the regulations are there so that we can nudge the people who are not really interested in doing the right thing to do the right thing. Mr. Kumar, if you were to look at, you know, what is the thing we need to actually move towards circularity? You gave us a very nice diagram, but now what is it that you expect?
So I think for me, two very clear and actionable takes on this. One, strengthen and support the informal sector and stop calling it informal and make effort to make it formal. That's what we have been doing it. And in fact, some of the 5,000 to 7,000 people which we have on ground, most of them were generation rapporteurs whom we have onboarded into our company as our employees. So that's how we do our bit to ensure that this informal to formal transition is catalyzed. That's one. Second is work on integrated recycling parks. That's something which is the need of the hour as a country today, given the kind of scale, volume, and demographics what we offer. See, recycling has always been a fragmented industry, and because it has been fragmented, it is burdened by a couple of things: high overheads, less bargaining power, and not being able to scale the operations. And if you look at multi-commodity recycling, there are so many synergies which can be driven across different types of waste which we generate. So as a company and as an individual, both we are championing this cause of integrated recycling parks. We have been able to set up a couple of them, not across all commodities, but across select commodities we have been able to do. And now we are working actually on a project on an integrated recycling park spanning 17 commodities, which we are putting up in Hyderabad. So that's the concept which we are working on, and we truly believe that can help transition this country into a very, very structured, like SEZ type of recycling parks, which can act as that catalyst. So that would be my two take on the subject.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sharma. Your your take, what is needed to make that move towards circularity? Clearly, we are sitting at a very critical moment.
Yeah, so my take on this is like, we should focus like more on the upcycling now, because right now the most of the recycling happen is like kind of a downcycling. And so we need to, continue to invest in research and development to create, the newer products, new value-added products particularly. Because if you see like, before last 2-3 years, most of the MLP was going for the co-processing only. But nowadays, like, with the research and development in this sector, people have started using this MLPs for various value-added products, and this has led to a good demand of the same and has led to the higher collection rates. So research is, I would say, the key here. Yeah.
Dr. Pandey, thank you, Mr. Sharma. Dr. Pandey, to you specifically, my question is, where does the government focus next? Because we are talking about circularity in a pretty circular manner, which is we're still looking at the waste thing. But suppose I look at circularity as part of the larger issue of climate change and environmental degradation. So bringing down crude imports, lowering dependence on fossil fuels, because that's where plastics comes from, and where do you think the next set of regulatory interventions should come? And in terms of research and development, what kind of interventions would you expect there? Again, what do you expect the government and think tanks like yours to do?
Sure. I mean, what I'll suggest is government needs to, and I agree with all my co-panelists on their suggestion. Government needs to work now very closely with producers, manufacturers, collectors, PROs, and recyclers. What would happen is the EPR is now in its early days. At some point of time, we would look at creating a recycling fund through funds which are received from producers and brand owners to fund the recycling operations. And some amount of this recycling fund, as Mr. Sharma indicated, that some money should be going for research and development. So some amount of this should be earmarked. I mean, typically 10% or so should be earmarked for these research and development needs on how to improve recycling processes, how to look at design elements in the products which facilitate recycling, easy collection, easy recycling. So that would then, I mean, at least address that financial bottleneck that we don't have enough money to basically value add or try for upcycling. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Rana, very quickly, I wanted to ask you, where do you see the opportunities for collaboration between India and the EU on this issue? Because it's clearly a problem at both ends, at different stages or different ways, but it's still a problem.
From my point of view, I will not concentrate only on recycling. I will concentrate on a bigger scale, which you mentioned. In general, I will answer your previous question by two sentences only. The first one, anyone for whom is waste a value will never try to prevent waste happen. That's the fact. The second is, if I am entering a company, I'm asking only one question to the CEO. Do you want to generate waste or profit? Mm-hmm. There is nothing in between, which means if we concentrate, and this is why I advise India to really stay with them, stay with you, because you can avoid a mistake which has been done in Europe and the US. If you invest too much in a recycling and at the end you realize, which millions of people in the world realize already, that waste can be prevented, what will you do with your factories? Because there will be no waste inside. Of course, we will all the time have some waste, but you can imagine Sweden, great example. They built burning facilities for waste. And because the capacity is over, so they import waste, secretly import waste from all over the Europe, just for their own people not to know. I don't want India to do that. That was a mistake. And don't be the collector of global waste. Please, be beautiful country of strong people, wise people, and don't try to be smart, because the smartphone is one thing, but only this Nokia was 3 years after. This is the only phone in history, which was 3 years a business phone globally, number one. And since then, I call it a wise phone. So I advise India, please be wise nation and try to prevent waste happen and be the role model for that. That's my advice.
Thank you so much. And on that note, I just want to thank all of you for being for this rather very interesting discussion. And I would like to hand it back to Anwar. For Akram, sorry, I want to hand it back to Akram and Kamal. Thank you so much for organizing this, and I hope it has been as much fun for the panelists as it has been for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Urmi. I think
thank you.
There cannot be a better moderator for this session than you. You have very rightly, brought a lot of points out of these, one of the best brains working in this sector. And I really congratulate you for making a very useful session that we all can enjoy and cherish. And I'm sure all the people who are watching us through webinar, our YouTube channel, and or on our website, they are thoroughly enjoyed the whole session. I can see the attendance of our session from 10 o'clock till now is pretty the same. So thank you so much, and we would continue to work around organizing these kind of policy dialogues. And next 4 policy dialogues are already scheduled to be held in various regions: northern, southern, eastern, and western. As Michael mentioned, we need to have our own solutions. So that's why these regional dialogues would be helping us to bring the right stakeholders from the region, and look forward to continual engagement on this. So with this, we end this session, and we thank you so much to all the participants and the panelists. Thank you.
Let me wish you all have a nice time free of waste and wasting in all its forms, and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.